so we can get certain things done.
Oh, okay,
So-
and so when it goes to the chair,
Might be on TV.
Right,
that's how the chair's gonna.
right,
Okay, I didn't know that.
right, right. So we have everybody pays a fee, but this is Thomas is not here yet, so I'll be pitching for him if it comes up.
Evening. It is 7:03, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember O'Neill? Here. Councilmember Beer?
Here.
Councilmember Beckmeyer? The record will reflect that Councilmember Beckmeyer is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Martin? Here. Mayor Vaterlos?
Here. And now the salute to the flag led by Mayor Pro Tem Deirdre Martin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, there was no reportable action from closed session.
Thank you. We'll go on to a special presentation by the Pacifica Police Department Life-Saving Awards.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, staff, and community members. My name is Dan Steidel. I'm your Chief of Police. And tonight I have the privilege of presenting these two gentlemen next to me with the Pacifica Police Department Life-Saving Medal. Directly to my right side here, correction, to my left side is Officer Smith. Officer Brandon Smith spent 2 years with our department in his youth as a police explorer. He was 2 years as a volunteer reserve police officer, and he's been with us now full-time as a police officer for approximately 3 years. Standing to his left is Sergeant Dwayne Wachtelborn, who started his career with the West Covina Police Department as a reserve officer for about 1 year, and he's been with our department for the last 23 years. So what brings us here tonight is on April 19th, at approximately 2 p.m., Officer Brandon Smith and Sergeant Dwayne Wachtelborn responded to the area of Crespi Drive and Tappas Way after our police dispatcher advised that there was a man down. Sergeant Wachtelborn arrived on the scene and retrieved his automated external defibrillator from his patrol vehicle. He then located the male subject who was lying on a nearby lawn unconscious. He assessed the patient and determined that he had an extremely faint pulse and very weak respirations, which we know are symptoms, potential symptoms of a severe medical emergency. Approximately 1 minute later, Officer Smith arrived on scene. Sergeant Wachtelborn placed the AED pads onto the patient's chest. After the AED analyzed the patient's heart rhythm and advised that a shock was necessary, which was applied to the patient. Together, Sergeant Wachtelborn and Officer Smith began conducting CPR on the patient. Within a few minutes, the North County Fire Authority Engine Number 72 and American Medical Response ambulance personnel arrived on the scene and worked with Sergeant Wachtelborn and Officer Smith to continue life-saving measures. The patient was transported to a local hospital with a pulse and was breathing on his own. The AED program was instituted at the Pacifica Police Department in 2008. Knowing that police officers are likely to be on the street when a serious medical call comes out, the AED program is intended to assist administering life-saving procedures if police officers arrive prior to fire and ambulance personnel. In this case, a follow-up conversation with the North County Fire Authority captain on the scene confirmed that without the quick administering of the AED and CPR by Sergeant Wachtelborn and Officer Smith, this patient would likely not have survived. This incident is another excellent example of the excellent collaboration that exists between the Pacifica Police Department and the North County Fire Authority as we strive to serve our community well. Special mention in this presentation is given to the Rotary Club of Pacifica, whose fundraising efforts in 2007 financed the purchase of the AEDs, which we carry today in our patrol vehicles. Sergeant Wachterborn and Officer Smith, your quick and effective actions were instrumental in the treatment of this patient and were responsible for saving the life of this community member in need. It is my honor and my privilege as your chief to award you both with the Pacifica Police Department Life-Saving Medal.
Want a picture or no? Up to you.
If you guys want to say something or a picture, whatever you like.
Well, we'll say something first.
Gentlemen?
Mary?
Thank you. I mean, what else can we really say except for thank you for all of your years of service. I love hearing that someone came out as an explorer. That's really special. Sergeant Wachterborn, I have personal experience working with you and working alongside you, so I am overcome, I think, just with gratitude. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. You know, you put your lives on the line every day, and it's really nice to be recognized for it, too. So thanks.
I mean, what else? Gracias, because everybody said thank you. So, gracias and danke, thank you, because it is a good place to live and a great place to raise families because of our police and fire and our public works people. So, thank you to you and all the city employees.
Thank you for protecting us every day, and it's really nice to have a good outcome. We so often don't hear the good outcomes, and this is really special. Thank you.
Let's get a picture. Yeah. One more.
Oh, one more? Oh, sure, got it.
He'll be sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. The next item is the consent agenda. Are there any council members who'd like to remove anything from consent? Seeing none, will someone make a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as stated.
I'll second.
Please vote. And that passes 4-0 with one absentee. Thank you. And next is oral communications. Believe it or not, I have no yellow cards for all.
Come on, Tiger. You
Tiger?
Give us one.
You can fill out. Okay.
Oh, here they come.
Oh. Tiger, you are
Hi.
the only one. Thank you.
I am Tiger Jastrows of Pacifica. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I have an idea that's been percolating on my brain for a while, and even though I think it's a pipe dream, and I alluded to it the last meeting, I want to just get it outside of my brain because it's still kind of annoying. So, and the rumor has it that the developer of the quarry is not interested any longer in developing the quarry, but on the off chance that's mistaken, or this person is listening and might be interested in an alternative, or somebody knows the developer and wants to pass on a message, I want to get this out of my brain, period. So we've been talking a lot about RVs and where we could, if ever, put a safe parking program. And the idea of a safe parking program not being a permanent place for people to stay, but being a place for them to hang out for a minute while they're figuring out what their next step is. And what occurred to me is if the developer of the quarry were to throw down a slab of concrete and invite that as being a space for a safe parking program in conjunction with putting a dump site somewhere, then we would have a place for the RVs to go on the one hand. On the other hand, I think that that would inspire the community to maybe support the developer in whatever projects they might want at the quarry, especially if the idea goes hand in hand with developing affordable housing along with whatever other housing, along with whatever other commercial projects. And if it's a comprehensive package that's honestly put forth, I think the voters might be very interested, especially if the developer is responsible for immediately offering a safe place to put a safe parking spot for maybe 10 years. I don't know how long it would take to develop that kind of a project. I imagine it would be a while, and I imagine, you know, at the end of, or whenever the development began, or later on down the road, then you could take away that slab of concrete and develop more there. But in the meantime, while that space isn't being used for anything at the moment, I figure that might be a win-win, because again, a place that's safe for people to go, and on the other hand, it might make it a lot more attractive to people voting for what the developer would want to put there. So, since that's just been gnawing at my brain as being a good idea, even though it might go nowhere, I want to just toss it into the airwaves. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another card, Victor Spano.
Good evening. I'm Victor Spano. I am here on behalf of the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber is inviting the council, staff, and community to our annual Taste of Pacifica event on June 22nd. We may have more than 17 restaurants attending. Tickets are $45 and may be obtained at the Chamber office. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And where is it, Victor? At the Moose Lodge?
Yes, sir.
And what time does it begin?
It's going to be start noon to 3. Thank you.
And seeing no other oral communications, we'll bring it back to council for council communications. And Mike O'Neill.
That was on for
Forever?
the consent calendar.
Okay, who wants to begin? Mary?
Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, I want to talk about Public Works. So it was Public Works Week, and I did not get a chance to go to any of the events that were hosted by Public Works, so I really wanted to take a minute and thank you all of the staff of Public Works. We're really, really fortunate to have you working in our city, so I'm so sorry I didn't get to make it to any of the events. I did attend the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Commission, so there's a couple things coming up. There's a basic first aid class on June 14th from 9 to 12:30 at Station 81 in Brisbane. And then right after that, there's a CPR and AED training also from 1:30 to 5 at the same place in Brisbane. So it's like a full day of safety if anyone wants to join in. And I also wanted to thank Captain Clements because he does an incredible amount of work for the Emergency Preparedness and Safety Committee. So I just wanted to shout out to him and thank him for his work. I'm part of the Age-Friendly Task Force, and so our application went into the World Health Organization, and there's going to be a celebration hosted by Supervisor David Canepa, which is also on Friday, June 14th. I think everything is happening on that day, from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock at the Sobrado Center in Redwood City. I also attended the second Home for All community conversation that was held at IBL. It was another successful evening with a packed house. There was one thing that I noticed, that there weren't a lot of youth in attendance, so it would be, I think, a really good opportunity for us to get our youth together and have that same sort of conversation at some point in time. I look forward to the report and what comes of all the conversations, because I would hate to have this amount of people in a room having conversations and have nothing come from it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some strategies that we can possibly work together as a community, because there were so many people and all the conversations were really interesting and people had a lot of ideas. So again, I really want to see something come of those conversations in the form of strategies, because, you know, we have an opportunity to come together and not be so on either end of things, you know, so that we can work together on strategies that can help our community, both compassionate and effective strategies. And on that note, there is a recruitment. The recruitment has begun for the Unhoused in Pacifica Task Force. The applications can be downloaded or completed online, and the deadline is June 14th. So again, there's lots of conversations in our community about people who are unhoused, and, you know, there's what can we do to help them, and they're blocking our views and all the different ideas, but what we really need is people to come together and work together to create solutions, and here's an opportunity to do just that. So please, if you want to help and you feel like applying, please do that. So, thank you.
Deirdre?
Yeah, like Mary, I was really impressed with the turnout at the housing meeting. Thanks to the city for working on that. It was like 80-plus people. And like Mary said, the Unhoused Task Force applications are now available. You can find them online. You can also find the link on Connect with Pacifica, I think. So thanks for turning that around so quickly. I attended the Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting last week. Nothing major, working on getting more customers out in the Central Valley, and also working on reach codes. So I'm working with the city, making sure that we're trying to work on the same timeline, and Director Wermeister is on that for working on reach codes.
What are reach codes?
Reach codes are new building codes. They're undefined. But what they would do is help offset some of our, it would actually be part of our climate action plan. I don't know if it would actually offset anything, don't quote me on that, but they're just ways in which we can, as developers and good citizens and stewards of our land, just try to strive for better, greener ways of building. So we'll see what that looks like. There's webinars and all sorts of fun things. I haven't dug too deep into it, but if we're going to do anything, it'll be, it'll come to council first. I attended the OSPAC meeting, that's Open Space Advisory Committee. We welcomed a new commission member, and she hit the ground running. So they're working on their mission, and we'll see that again. We'll request an agenda item for that. Also, I don't know if it's a world, but National Trails Day is coming up June 1st. And here in Pacifica, the GGNRA is going to be working on Maury Point, removing some of that poison oak. So if you're interested in coming, you don't have to remove the poison oak, but if you want to, it's 9 to 1, and they're meeting down over by the entrance where the new bathrooms are by the Moose Lodge. This Wednesday, not tomorrow, the next Wednesday, coming up is June 5th. That is the San Mateo County Climate Collaborative. The theme is turning the tides, and so it's all around sea level rise and adaptation strategies, and lots of presentations from lots of cities and community members on what they're doing. That is an RSVP invite, so you have to look for that.
I think that's the one where the first speaker is from Terra Nova, isn't it?
Yeah, we may be giving some we may be giving something on ours too. We just, we didn't submit our name in time. We said, yeah, I know, I did, no, I confirm, I know, but we're also, we may be. I may be. Yeah, we had our Pacifica Beach Coalition meeting last week too, and everybody's just sort of reeling and reveling in the successful Earth Day, so there's a lot of celebrating going on. And I also want to tack on to what Mary said, thank you to Public Works for all that you do. That's it.
Okay. Let's see, I attended I attended the housing meeting along with every other council member. I went to the Pacifica Democrats and heard our mayor speak about the finances of the city. I also had coffee with one of the ministers in town to discuss the unhoused program we're starting. And I'd just like everybody to listen here to these names, and that's Larry Foster, Robert Curry, Stan Childers, Medford Chrysler, James Walker, George Cabano, Robert Compton, Charles Wright, George Patterson, David McKay, and John Permenko. And those were the 11 sons of Pacifica that were killed in Vietnam, who in their the earliest was 53 years ago. And I just wanted to remember them this day after Memorial Day, because it's something we should do, that even in war, sometimes the people from Pacifica have to go. So I'd like to adjourn in their memory tonight, and also in memory of all those in D-Day. It's the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Thank you. I went to the City and County Association of Governments Water Committee. We are forming a new district in the county, which is the Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District. And there will be representatives from the coast and all of the other districts in San Mateo. It's a 7-member committee. I went to Horace Hinshaw's sports breakfast for a very few minutes because I needed to go to the Democrats. Mainly my speech was about district elections, which still I'm finding that so many people have no idea about district elections. And feel free to contact me about district elections, and I can talk to any group about it because it's really important, and it's going to come up in the election next year. I tried to go to the Terra Nova car show, but I couldn't find it, and it was pouring rain. So I went to Jackie Spears' housing meeting at Skyline College, which was extremely interesting, about Peninsula housing. There was a fundraiser for St. Jude's at the Pacific Athletic Center on the same day, too, so there was a lot going on that day. I went to the chamber mixer at Living Plant, which is a very adorable new business on Palmetto. So if anybody needs plants, please go there. I did go to the Public Works open house, and I learned about VacCon and where they suck out the sewage. And I saw their sign department and all the sewer pipes on display. And it was actually quite interesting being at the Public Works. I learned a lot that day. I, of course, went to the Home for All here, and I was pleased to meet a young man who's been here for 2 months, who came to the meeting, because most of the time the people who come to those meetings have been here for quite some time, and it was really nice to meet him. And he came up to meet me because he said he'd only been here for 2 months and he really would like to get involved in the city. It was nice. I went to the lunch for Pacifica Resource Center, which was exceptional food, and thank you very much for hosting the lunch and giving awards to people who are well-deserved. I also went to the Home for All convening in Belmont. They bring together the people who discuss Home for All with us, and it's a much larger group. There are about 200 city managers, public works, mayors, council, and we get additional information each time they have one. I went to the Memorial Day service at Chapel by the Sea and gave a really short speech. Also, on June the 1st, Cops and Kids will be at the parking lot at the community center. No? Sorry. Sea Bowl. I have it in my calendar, sorry. At Sea Bowl. So I've been before, and they bring out even the old police car, and they have exhibits with the dogs. It's really quite a good thing for the kids, too. And I enjoyed it as an adult. So that I can tell you exactly, but that'll be at Sea Bowl. And you can look that up online. And that's it for me. Okay. Staff communications.
Thank you, Mayor Vaterlas. Council members, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. I wanted to take a moment to just reiterate a few of the items that were mentioned by council members. The first is regarding the Unhoused in Pacifica Task Force. That application went live on Friday. It's available through the city's website on the homepage in the scrolling bar, and it will be available for download on the Pacifica Resource Center's website as well, and through various other means. We issued it out through our social media contacts as well. The application deadline, as mentioned, is June 14th. I also wanted to comment about the Home for All convening last week. It was the second of two. It was a great success. The summary report will be coming out in the upcoming weeks. One thing that I did want to mention is that at the Peninsula-wide convening, which Mayor Vaterlas mentioned, which happened in Belmont in front of 200 or so folks, the Assistant County Manager, Peggy Jensen, in her presentation about the Home for All program, used our social media animation video as an example of how good outreach can result in getting people to meetings. So that was great to have that exposure peninsula-wide. And finally, I'll comment on Public Works Week. This was the first time that we've celebrated Public Works Week in a long time, if not forever. And it was a great success. The open house was a big success. It happened at a time that wasn't convenient for a lot of residents to attend, so we'll be looking at that in the future as to whether we can have it be more near the end of a day or on a weekend, but there's expenses related to that. But we want that exposure in order to educate the residents more about all the great things and important tasks and services that Public Works provides. And then there was a great Public Works picnic and celebration and softball game that occurred on Thursday as well. And so that was a great morale builder and fun time for the whole department. And that completes my notes.
And Cops and Kids is from 10 to 3 on Saturday, the 1st. Okay, we have no public hearings. We'll go into council consideration. And the first up is the library project.
Thank you, Mayor Vaterlas and members of the City Council. My name is Tina Wermeister. I'm the Planning Director. And tonight we have assembled a team to present to you a report on the culmination of 14 months of work, resulting in a conceptual design report for Pacifica's libraries. This is a major milestone in the project. I wanted to introduce the presenters that you'll be hearing from tonight. In addition to myself, I have Cindy Abbott here, who's chair of the Library Advisory Committee and also a member of the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission. Don Marcus from Group 4, who is our consulting architect firm, and Kurt Balo from FM3 is here to present the findings of a voter survey conducted in February. So because this is a milestone, I hope you'll indulge me. I wanted to give thanks to a few people. So I wanted to acknowledge others on the team that are not speaking tonight, but have spent a lot of project. So of course, City Manager Kevin Woodhouse, Sarah Coffey, our City Clerk, Mike Perez, Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Director, Helen Gannon, Assistant Planner, San Mateo County Library staff team, including Anne Marie, Corrine, and Julie Finklin, our Pacifica librarian, Daheen, Andrea, and Teresa from the Group 4 team. Of course, the Pacifica Friends of the Library and the Pacifica Library Foundation. And most importantly, the entire Library Advisory Committee, who's always been supportive and enthusiastic of this project and took extra time to share the importance of the project with the community, not just attending monthly meetings only, but making presentations in the community, serving on editing committees, and working kiosks with staff at various community events. It's very much a team effort and very much appreciated. So I'll continue with the presentation. So as I mentioned, this is the culmination of 14 months of work on the conceptual design for the library. We started working on site programming, and then we also did quite an extensive community outreach program, including the various events like tree lighting and the Fog Fest. We attended, gave council updates, planning commission feedback and presentations, Park, Beaches, and Recreation Commission meeting. And then the Library Advisory Committee, they represent a variety of groups in town, and they all signed up to present a presentation that was created by Group 4 out into the community. So they went to the schools, they went to the Rotary Club, they went kind of all over the place, the Chamber of Commerce, in order to get the message out about the project. So the two most recent council updates were in September of 18 and then just in February. So in September, we received direction to go forward with an open access library model, and confirmed that the council did want to pursue a 2-library option, and provided some parameters and directed staff and the LAC to go out and do additional community outreach and develop a final conceptual design plan. And so we did that. We created, Group 4 created 2 concept designs and also some operational modeling for Sanchez, and brought both the Sharp Park Library design and Sanchez back to council on the 25th, and received direction to move forward with the Town Commons design option. So Cindy and Dawn are going to be providing the details on those items.
Hi, everyone. I want to, first of all, thank the council for having the Library Advisory Committee and have the opportunity to continue to reach out and share with the community the importance of this project for Pacifica. And to also thank members of the Library Advisory Committee. I see some who are here today who have volunteered their time over the past couple of years on this project. I know some have volunteered even longer than that, but specifically for the Library Advisory Committee, and we're excited to share where we are with you today. This was our second round of outreach here. We had done outreach earlier on the locations and how many libraries to support here in Pacifica. This second round, we had over 700 community members participate in it, And it's important to note that in addition to being at public meetings and locations in the community, there was also an online outreach. So we're using different technology and different ways to reach out to the community. You don't have to go someplace. You can go online and take part in the surveys on your own. So the outreach also included a number of different age groups, and everything from being at preschool programs to pop-up libraries, which reaches the senior population in town and everybody in between. One of the questions that we asked on this round of surveys, which was focused on what did you want to see at the Sanchez Library and what did you want to have the Sharp Park Library look like, but the key question that we asked to start that all off is, do you currently use the libraries? And 56% of the respondents did indicate that they use Sanchez, either all the time or often, and 63% of the community utilize Sharp Park. So it does show wide support for people in the community and that go to our libraries, and just think of what will happen if we have a new library. So this is the question where we asked, and we'll get into in a minute the information about Sanchez, the open access library model that uses technology to provide more open hours in addition to providing library services. And so this chart's important, this feedback, because 24% of those that surveyed wanted to see more hours. As a reminder, both Sanchez and Sharp Park are only open 30 hours a week per library location. So that's not very much. So we're looking with this concept to expand services. The other things that were of key importance was having a browsable collection, the library programs, which the library has committed to continuing, and holds and drop-offs are a really big thing that takes place at the libraries because you can go online and reserve a book and then just go in and get it. So the open access model that we're going to be talking about in a little bit is a great way to offer that at a lot more hours than what people can do today with those 30 hours a week. So this was specific library services at Sanchez. The other thing that we asked for community input on was what community activities did you want at that library? At our prior meetings here at Council, we shared about the open access model and how we were also looking at exploring a partnership with City Parks, Beaches, and Recreation. So these are some of the things that in partnership with the library staff and PB&R staff could be held at Sanchez. And so this will be how we gauge what programs to have there and to shape what we could do at that location with both library and PB&R services. The other thing that we surveyed earlier was the exterior design values. And we had presented some of those at the last study session, received the council direction on which look to go for. What I want to share on this one is what was really important to the advisory committee was, yes, we had fun looking at slides of different looks and feels of the different proposals. You know, that's really exciting to look at and to decide what it should look like. But site context was the most important. Something that fit into the area. Not only is Palmetto a commercial area for Sharp Park, but it's also residential. So we didn't want such an imposing building that it stood out like a sore thumb, but really fit in and blended both with the location next to the ocean and the neighborhood community that's in Sharp Park. And you'll see how Group 4 came up with the exciting ideas that they have for this. So a little bit more about Sanchez, that feedback and where we're heading with that. We felt really good that that feedback that we were getting about wanting more hours, being able to do things that didn't necessarily require a trained librarian to be doing, such as picking up a hold or dropping something off fits into what the vision is for Sanchez Library. So as we've talked about before, it was really important. We heard the community say the need for 2 libraries, and you heard that too, and it was really appreciated. But what that leaves us with is, what do we do with operating 2 library model with 2 libraries in Pacifica, because we only have the hours to fund the one on a significant level. So it's that same question that we've been challenged with since 1999 when the JPA was formed. What we're looking at doing here at Sanchez is we've got two options here for this 4,000 square foot, definitely a petite location. And what we're showing here is we could have an indoor program area and library materials segregated off to the side. You'll also see in that library open area where there could be seating and some quiet study areas, something that does not exist at the Sanchez Library today because of its current configuration. So, or we could potentially simply flip those 2 areas. But there's a lot of ways that that space can be reconfigured and made much more functional than it is today. And you'll see here there is still the possibility for a future addition. That would be potentially with a breezeway connecting the 2 buildings because of that large red line there that's on the site plan, which is a big stormwater pipe. So nothing's decided yet as far as how that will be. It would require some additional time to go over and see how it could be configured. But this does meet what we just saw that the community is interested in, being able to access the library, browse a little bit, and also have programming in an area that allows both programs and library services to take place at the same time. So here's what we're looking at. All of these things together, library services as well as community programming. And so we are looking at working with Parks, Beaches, and Recreation. Director Perez has been speaking with his staff, and they've been part of some of the library planning meetings for the past several months, talking about what programming could take place there. Of course, we would incorporate that with the community feedback that we got as far as designing and determining what would be held at Sanchez. But how are we going to get into that library? How can we offer more access 7 days a week with the limited staffing that we have and operate 2 libraries? And that's through this concept called the open access library model. And it's been interesting as we started exploring this, and we first came up with a library in Great Britain, and we've been popping up and finding others. Most recently, we've seen how there's a concept like this in Ventura County. The Hill Road Library does use this open access model. As you can see on the left, you have a closed door with your library card ends up serving as your key card access to the building. And that can be programmed so that it sets the hours that you can go in, it sets who can go in, you apply for that. It doesn't come with just your library card. And at that library in Ventura, this is also a package. This isn't something that needs to be created and programmed here in Pacifica. So the San Mateo Library system, our partners would be looking at how to coordinate that and do it. In that library in Ventura, they actually only allow access for people at 18 and above. It is secured, and they do share that that you're on, it is covered by security access. So people know who's in. That's a question that came up quite a bit, was safety and security of that. Interestingly, so far in this model, the libraries have been reporting that they have not really run into issues. People take community pride and respect that they've been able to take part and, utilize the library more. So we, through Tina and staff, have also been looking at talking with the police chief just to make sure that we have a plan once we get to that point. But there are a lot of different ways with technology that this model is doable. And we're really excited about that. There would be then, though, the seating areas that we've talked about were important. Group study areas, quiet reading that doesn't exist today. Again, a reminder. There were concerns about how, in our early surveys, about how Sanchez, if a program's going on, you can't do anything else there. So reconfiguring the space would allow us to have some quiet areas there and the ability to just enjoy the library while others were attending a program. The collection, 22% again of the community said that that was really important to them to have a viable and searchable collection there at Sanchez. That could be done with reconfiguring again the shelving. And 17% were looking for ways to just go and pick up their holds and drop-offs. Today, a lot of the technology, not the door system and the controls, but the libraries already utilizes a lot of different technology where you can self-check out and check back in. You can check out laptops on these kiosks, and that would continue as well. And I want to share the library staff is pretty excited about this as they've been researching these different models. We've had some concerns that people feel that this may eliminate staff, and that is not at all the intention. The intention is to increase the services and hours that the library is available to people and to allow our great library staff to actually take part in programs and helping people one-on-one with what they need to do at the library. The reconfigured space would also have this flexible program area. This could be used for seniors to get together and do an exercise program, or it might be used for musical story time. It could be a little bit of anything, and it would also be available for the community to rent out and have a space there in the back of the valley. So that's some of the ideas about the open access library for the Sanchez Library, and I'm now going to turn it over to Dawn to share about Sharp Park.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Cindy. And I would just like to preface my presentation on what a fabulous experience it has been working with the LAC, the council, city staff, and the community. I mean, it's really been a learning experience, and one I hope that we've learned and are able to reflect in the design work as well as this operational model, which is very unique, and it's exciting. It's exciting to come up with a unique solution for this unique condition that Pacifica has. To that extent, the Sharp Park vision for the new library is very much built off that site context. It's really about fitting into this part of Pacifica where we're kind of the gateway to Palmetto Avenue in the business district. It's transitional from multi-use or multi-level residential as well as single residential houses, and then it abuts the most important part of Pacifica, which is the coast side, and really creates the opportunity to engage this community facility, one that's one of the most used by the community, to one of your best assets as well. So super excited that we're able to work with everybody to come up with this proposal for this conceptual design. As you see the two floor plans, this is the main library floor on the left in the dark blue, and then the top level floor of the library on the right. The main library floor is about the same level as the existing community room is. And underneath that is proposed 2 levels of parking. And then the top level where we have the community program room with the library program room and library staff space. On the top level is about the existing level where the current library space is. So we've kind of done a flop here. And we can explain in a minute operationally why that flop was functionally an improvement. As you look along Palmetto Avenue, we have 2 access points to the parking, which we're actually not showing here just for efficiency. They're just parking stalls. There's one entrance right off of Palmetto here, and does the pointer work on this? No. So off Palmetto, you can see the in and out arrow, which goes into the lower level of parking, and then as you're going up Hilton Way, you can see the second access to the parking shown there. And that is important in order to meet the parking requirements for the project. This view here is looking towards the southeast. You can see Palmetto Avenue down along the front of the building, Hilton Way going up towards the left there, up to the neighborhood behind us. And you can see how we're able to fit into the hillside with this building. The main floor along Palmetto at grade with Palmetto Avenue is access to the parking lot, but we do have vertical circulation and a vertical lobby located there. Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you very much. So here's our vertical circulation shown right here, which is the elevator and stair that connects all levels of the building together, from the parking to the library to the community program library space on the top floor as well. We have street access right here, which is accessible access, as well as direct access to the library off of this level with this community plaza right here. There is a second plaza up off Hilton Circle here, which is independent access then to the community room located right here. We do have outdoor space that complements the library spaces. In addition to these public spaces that I've just mentioned, we actually have the opportunity for a nice view deck along here, and then along this southern side over here, you'll see in another view in just a moment, is the opportunity for an enclosed secure children's yard. And so that is the view of the building from the south, or looking towards the southeast. So dropping down, kind of moving just slightly above pedestrian head level along Palmetto Avenue, looking in the same direction, you can see the vertical circulation core that I mentioned here, transparency, really trying to retain the active level that you want on Palmetto by not looking straight into a garage. We have a lobby space in here, and there is the potential for a small opportunity space that could be some kind of partner space or things like that. There's about 700 square feet there that helps provide that active retail street level space that you want on Palmetto. And then looking back up north along Palmetto, this is the elevation that you would see here, and this really describes how we're kind of tucking into the hillside here, creating a nice strong civic presence along Palmetto, but then stepping down en masse and being a good neighborhood on the back. Good neighbor. This is the enclosed secure children's yard next to the children's area here, reading area, viewing deck here, with the main community library program space located up here on the top level. One of the great results that this strategy has resulted in, I think, is the opportunity to really be a little bit less civic, if you will, up on Hilton Circle at the top of the hill here. We're actually able to pretty much maintain that single level massing from the top of the hill. So really not impeding anybody's views more than the existing building does at this top level, really fitting in nicely and opening up to the vistas out towards the ocean. You can see here, this is great opportunity for deliveries as well as any large event planning that might be happening in the large program space here with this outdoor plaza, which then cascades down the hill to that lower level plaza, to the entry street level plaza as well. And then here's just a night rendering that kind of shows the opportunity for the building to really be a beacon. As we know, many winter nights sometimes are clouded in fog. We don't always get to see those stars, as Cindy pointed out to me earlier. So when those stars are covered with our lovely fog, you would be able to see kind of the glowing transparency of the building, kind of reaching out to engage the community, to invite them in, and to see all of the great activity. Just trying to describe the building in yet another view. This then kind of moves halfway up of Hilton Drive, where you can look down to those public plaza places, and you can really see how the building kind of bends around and is like these opening arms reaching out to pull the community in and to invite them to participate. The program is something that Pacifica really hasn't had the opportunity to experience. The program for this large branch is a full-service program, and so meaning that we have really something for everybody in the building, from seating spaces to collections to opportunities for activities. And I'll just click through these quickly. Obviously, a main service point, space for the Friends of the Library, as well as integrating technology throughout the building, which is really an opportunity to leverage your space even further. A space for children. You definitely have some children's space now in your libraries, but definitely not the area for the collection, the area for the kids' programming, or by any means sufficient seating. As well as space for teens. I know that the community has been yearning for this, but having a dedicated teen space that has a sufficient space for collection, integrated technology, as well as a space where they can collaboratively work together, do those group projects that are so important in middle school, and kind of getting them ready to move on to high school and higher education as well. As we look at the adult space, I think definitely having quiet reading is something that would be appreciated in either of your libraries. Definitely part of the vision, along with the collection, collaborative spaces, and again, the technology. Having a sufficient size community program space that is divisible. Right now, we're looking at it being divisible by 3, meaning that you could actually have 3 program spaces happening together, different activities for library programming, partner programming, or potentially even use by other community groups. Or being open and being able to accommodate even larger groups, I know is an important vision for the community. And then these collaborative group study spaces. And I know I've heard from different LAC members as well as members from the council and the community having visited Half Moon Bay Library and really seeing what all of these elements mean and how they can be used throughout the day by different groups, from homeschoolers to small businesses to tutoring. It really provides a whole nother kind of element for the library to support its community with. And then the maker space, really kind of that added bonus space that can either be high-tech or high-touch, really providing another opportunity for the library and the community to engage in different activities. And so with that, I think I hand it back to Tina.
So we still have the FM3 voter survey presentation, but I wanted to pause for a second and see if there was any clarifying questions from the council at this point for any of us.
Mike?
Regarding, that street's pretty narrow, Hilton Way. Would the parking for the neighbors be affected on there? Because I know it's like a red zone up to about the corner of the library. So that would remain the red zone, and then...
Yeah, so the neighbors' parking would not be affected at all.
Okay. And then, excuse me, the plaza that's on Hilton, is that fenced or is it open that somebody could be using it after hours?
So the plaza right now, that definitely could be up for discussion, but it's more envisioned as public space and having it be lit for security purposes, but really that's the public access points to the building, depending on the uses that might be happening that day. But right now, it's not envisioned that that side of the building be secured off, but it could be if that was the desire.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Nope.
So we'll just need Clerk Coffey to switch over the presentation, and we'll turn it over to Kurt Balo.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to conduct another survey for the city, and happy to present the results of the research we conducted a few months ago. As a warning, there are a few slides in here that are very dense with numbers and text. I have no intention of reading them all to you. They're in your materials, so I will skip over a few of these slides and really try to hit the high points and the main takeaways here from this round of research. Just a quick note on the methodology. We conducted interviews with voters in your community who are likely to participate in next November's election. That lets us look at both a couple different turnout scenarios there. We did interviews online and on the phone, and we have a few comparison points with prior research we've conducted, and I think it's particularly poignant when we look at some of the 2016 research we conducted prior to placing the prior bond measure on the ballot, and I'll highlight those in the presentation. So the most important question in any of these surveys is, well, how would people react to a hypothetical 75-word ballot question? It's the only piece of information that you're guaranteed that everyone will have a chance to read before they decide to vote on a measure. And here's the language that we came up with, working with staff and other stakeholders here. Hypothetical 75 words, we tested two different bond measure amounts, a $40 million bond measure and a $54 million bond measure. So half the respondents got the 40 and half got the 54. For those of you who recall prior finance measures, you'll now notice in prior years you only had to mention the aggregate bond amount. Now you have to include additional financial information in those 75 words, such as how much it generates on an annual basis and things of that nature. So it's a little more technical in nature and a little less words. So we presented these. Some respondents read this, some heard them on the phone, and we said, well, after hearing this, how do you think you might vote on it? And you'll see here that the differences between the $40 million amount and the $54 million amount were essentially negligible. So for the purposes of this presentation, we blended them together, and essentially 64% of the respondents to the survey said, yeah, I'll vote yes on this measure. A third said they'd vote no, and then a pretty small number were undecided. And keeping in mind that this measure would require a 2/3 vote threshold to pass. So this is just a little bit below that, within the margin of error of the 2/3 vote threshold, but just a hair below. And there's more intensity on the yes side than on the no side. You want to see, as a crude rule of thumb, you want to see your overall support be above 2/3 and your definite yeses be get to 40%. So we're just a hair below that right now. But we'll see in some comparisons to where we were in 2016, there's been some improvements. So the survey we conducted for the city last in June of 2016, we looked at a bond measure for a different proposal. And obviously the hard work over the last 14 months that various people put in has resulted in a very different vision for what the libraries could look like. But back in 2016, when we conducted a survey for you, we went through this similar exercise. Here's 75 words, how might you vote on it? And 62% indicated they would vote yes. It's not a lot different from what we got now. And obviously the eventual outcome was 55%, much lower than 2/3. But
Excuse me, can I ask one question?
Sure.
How many people did you survey?
561.
Okay, thank you.
But as we go through this presentation here, you will see that at this point, support looks kind of similar to June of 2016, but when we provide more information in this survey, we see a much different result by the end of the survey. And that, I think, reflects the different proposal that is on the table right now. So of those who said they'd vote yes, so this is not all response to the survey, just those who said, yeah, I'd probably vote yes, I'm definitely voting yes, or maybe I'm just leaning towards voting yes. Why would you vote yes? Tell us in your own words. And then either they typed it in or they told someone on the phone, here's why I'd vote yes. And then we do our best to jam all those different comments into different categories. This is as much art as science here. These percentages may add up to more than 100% because someone could have mentioned many different topics. But you're kind of looking for what are the main reasons that people would want to vote yes. And it's a lot of generic libraries are good. And that's that first bar, about a third mentioned that. And then similar third mentioned the current libraries here in the city need improvements. Those seem to be the two biggest reasons for people indicating that they would vote yes on a library bond measure here in Pacifica. Again, this is a slide, lots of text. You can read this at your own leisure here, but this is a flavor of some of those verbatim comments here. And you can see some of these are illustrative of the rationales that supporters of a measure provided. I'm going to kind of skip through this, and we did the same exercise with the no folks. So we had about a third who said, I don't want to vote on this. I'm going to vote no, either definitely or probably, or I'm leaning towards a no vote. And we try to put those responses in different categories here, and about a fifth said, well, it's just I'm against increasing my property taxes, and some were just categorically against bond measures in general. And a third bar there we'll touch on a little bit later here too, which is the concept that there's other higher priorities out there. And again, here are some of those rationales for voting no. Many of these are flavors of I don't want to see my taxes go up. And there's a little bit about, there's things like roads need to be repaired, and I would prioritize that above library expenses. So, now this is where things diverged a little bit from that June 2016 survey. In both those surveys, we went forward and said, here's a hypothetical 75 words you could vote on. How would you vote? And now let's give you a short explanation about what's going on here and what the project might look like. Obviously, the project as proposed in 2016 was different. It was consolidating into one big library, and this one is different. And this is the language that we tried to use here to explain it. Trying to describe it in not too technical terms, but hit the salient important points here. We either read this to someone on the phone, or they read it on their computer or laptop or phone. And then we said, after hearing this additional information, now how might you vote? And you'll see here that providing this explanation, support, and we combined the two bond amounts because they were so similar, went from 64 to 70%. And so this is above the 2/3 vote threshold, not by a large margin, but a few points above it. And the no votes actually went down too. Very few people are undecided. This does not seem to be something that there's a lot of fence sitters about, at least initially. So providing that explanation seemed to elevate people's comfort level with the potential bond measure. And here's where we see the real divergence from where the research we conducted for you in 2016. In 2016, we provided an explanation for the project and what would be actually happening. And support went down, only 3 points within the margin of error, but went from 63 to 59%. Now this time we present an explanation and support actually goes up 6 points. So it's a big difference there once additional background and explanation was provided to a response to the survey than a few years ago. The next set of slides I'm going to go through are we presented respondents to the survey with a whole very long list of ways that money could be spent from a bond measure. It's a long list, so people didn't get all of them. We used a technique called split sampling where half the respondents would get some of these and half would get the other, so that you didn't sit on the phone for 35 minutes going through these. But it also let us test different ways to explain certain types of spending categories, trying to find ones that resonate and or understandable to the public. And what we did in this is sorted now. We presented them in random order, but we are sorting them by how important they were seen as to respondents to the survey. The scale we used was how important would it be for you to money from this bond be spent in this manner. The dark blue bars are those who said that category is extremely important to me. The lighter blue bars are very important to me, and the shades of pink and red are either somewhat or not too important. We're focusing here on these slides, and I believe there's 4 of them, on the aggregate of the extremely or very important. So the things that, oh yeah, I really want my money to be spent in this category. 4 slides here, and there's a distinct theme here on the first slide. These are all the items that were seen as the most important spending categories, and they're almost all about repairs or fixing problems with the libraries. Problems with roofs, wiring, fire safety, plumbing, things of that nature. Response to this survey said, yes, that is really important. You should be spending bond funds addressing these shortcomings. Now, in the case of one library, it may be repairing them. In the case of the other, we're going to put a new library there, which essentially addresses the issue. But in any case, those seem to really resonate with individuals. The last item on the slide is the only thing that doesn't fall into that category, and this is the providing safe space for children and teens, which is some of the features that Dawn referenced in her presentation as well. So everything here, roughly 4 out of 5 or more said was an extremely or very important priority. On the next slide, we're sort of in the mid-60s to a little bit below 80% here. So again, these are areas where respondents, many, roughly 2/3 or more, said, I think this is an extremely or very important spending priority. And now we start getting into some of the technological aspects here, internet access, modern computer technology, things like that sort of bubbling up there, as well as additional topics relating to children's book club rooms and things of that nature. The next slide, and again, I'm not going to go through all these here, but kind of in the middle tier. We're kind of in the 50-ish% range. About half of respondents said extremely very important, and you're just starting to see those dark red bars get a little bit bigger. The percentage of those who think it's not too important of a spending priority. And these has a few of these things related to disability access, senior programs, repairing the Sanchez Library here, and providing a community space. Now, again, these are not things that we're suggesting as should not be a part of any of these projects. That's not our role here. Our role is to say, what do community members care the most about in this context that can be informative for engaging with them in the future and communicating them about the benefits of the overall project. The last slide here, and this is where the extremely very important numbers dip below 50%. And you start to see a few of those red bars actually get to be in the 30s. And a lot of these, and what will be kind of interesting here is when we compare these short descriptions to some more lengthier ones later in the survey here. A lot of these have to do with generic things about modernizing the library or building a new Sharp Park library. Didn't resonate as much as the benefits. So this is not uncommon. Oftentimes for, let's say, measures related to public safety, may say we need to hire additional police officers or buy a new fire engine or whatever it is. And those are the inputs. Voters tend to be much more interested in the outputs. That's going to improve my response times. That's going to increase the ability for investigation of crime. Some of this may be the similar dynamic going on here, which is modernizing the library doesn't mean as much to them as, well, here's exactly what we're doing. And it seemed like the specificity, particularly in regards to some of the repairs and everything, really resonated. The other item here I want to point out here is we looked at a few different ways of talking about the accessibility here. Open 7 days a week, staying accessible 7 days a week, making Sanchez an automated self-serve facility. Those really short, concise expressions simply did not resonate. Now, later in the survey, we spent a little more time explaining the current circumstances and comparing them to what would be in the new world, and that tended to resonate much more. Sometimes you can get away with saying we're fixing leaky roofs and defaultlessly wiring because these are fire risks, and people get it. And in some cases with the accessibility here and being open, it's going to require a little bit more explanation. Sort of the last section I'm going to go through here, or second to last, is when you do a survey, it's a snapshot in time, and it's not a predictive tool per se, but one of the ways that we can try to do that is, well, let's pretend the measure is on the ballot, and there's a community dialogue, and there are people saying, this is a great idea, this is a bad idea, and we want to look at the collective impact of that to help make some assessments in terms of viability for a measure. And we did that here in this survey. So we started off at that 64%, and that little dashed line is roughly a 2/3 vote threshold. We came in and said, here's the project, before we're really saying a lot of pros and cons about it, and that support jumped up to 70%. Then we introduced some arguments in favor of the bond. This is why we should do this, and that support stayed roughly at the same place. It was interesting that just the explanation got the big jump. But then we came in and said, well, here's some reasons why this is a bad idea. And that support dropped down a little bit to virtually the starting point. So collectively over the course of the survey, support's basically hovering right around the 2/3 vote threshold. What's interesting here is when you compare that to the survey from 2016, support was essentially hovering around 60%. And we saw a couple of inklings that it could fall into the 50s, which is ultimately where it ended up. So while this is not a measure that initially at this point in time is starting off above the 2/3 vote threshold, it is clearly it's being received at a much higher level than the measure was in 2016. At the back of the survey in the appendices, we have some explanations for what these are, but we did go through some arguments in favor of the bond measure and some arguments opposed to it. This is sort of the short summaries of those, and for each of them we said, well, how convincing of this a reason for you to vote yes, or how convincing of a reason is this for you to vote no? And so the dark blue bars, or the percentage of those who said that's a very convincing reason to vote yes, light blue, somewhat convincing. There's not huge distinctions here, but everything above that dashed line was seen as at least very convincing by 2/5 of respondents, and roughly 3/4 thought it was a generally convincing reason. And that repairs message right at the top, again, at the spending priorities, we saw that. Those jump up to the top of the list as well. But when we compared the library resources you have here in your community to others, that seemed to resonate. Talked about this would actually keep both branches open. Obviously, a different proposal than in 2016. The kids' issues here. And then one thing I highlighted a little bit earlier on, I promised I'd touch back on, was that hours accessibility message. So when we just said keeping the library open 7 days a week, keeping it accessible, or using a little more technical language to explain it, bottom of the list in terms of spending priorities. When we explain the current circumstances where libraries are only open for a few days a week, essentially, and this would allow access throughout the course of the week, it really made a difference. So that was something where the context, the current situation, and what's being proposed needs to be fully fleshed out for that to be a compelling rationale. Now, this is the flip side. These are the criticisms here. What are reasons why maybe the most compelling reasons to oppose the measure? What was interesting here is the actual cost to people, like the general anti-tax sentiment and the impact that it may have on someone, a homeowner themselves, or at the bottom of the list. Those are often the very top reasons to oppose any finance measure. But here in your community, the fact that one of the arguments was this would disproportionately fall upon the shoulders of seniors on limited incomes, that seemed to resonate. And then a couple different flavors of the city has other needs. Roads, public safety, that's where we should be spending our tax dollars, not in the library. Those seem to be some of the arguments on the opposite side that resonated the most. So in conclusion, I'm not going to go through all these bullets. We basically hit upon these, but again, we have a measure here that is basically hovering around the 2/3 vote threshold. There's, unlike in 2016 where the measure in our research never got to 2/3, we now have seen it get to 2/3. So it suggests that the proposal that's now put out in the community definitely reflects the community values more than what was proposed in 2016. And obviously more communication is going to be needed here, and the viability of something is obviously uncertain. We're a ways away from any election right now, but you're starting off in a much more favorable position than you were in the summer of 2016. So with that, I'll hand it back to Tina or take questions.
Sure, so I'll just conclude. So with that information that we're not quite ready to recommend to the city council a particular ballot date, that we felt that the recommendation should be to continue to do more community outreach, and it would be more focused community outreach on some of the messaging that Kurt and his team identified in the survey, as well as demographic groups that are identified that perhaps could use a little bit more education on what the project is to hopefully gain their support. And so the recommendations tonight are to accept the conceptual design report and approve that, to receive and file the survey information, and then to direct the city manager, the library advisory committee, and staff to conduct that additional citizen education and outreach that I mentioned, and then retest a 2020 bond measure in several months, so probably in the fall sometime. And then we would report back to the city council and hopefully at that point have a recommendation for you as to which election in 2020 we could hopefully put a bond measure on.
Do we have questions from council before we go to the public? None. Okay, we have one card, Eric Rushames.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. I'd first like to thank the council for their unwavering support of this project. 4 of the 5 of you have been liaison to the LAC, which has been invaluable. Mike the only one who hasn't and has spent many years involved in the library project and is well familiar with it, and we appreciate that support. I also want to call out the city manager and city staff for the work that they've done to keep this moving along, and Cindy for her leadership, and Dawn, and all the folks that have been working very hard to continue this arduous and hopefully not endless process to bring a new library to Pacifica. And all you have to do is look down to Half Moon Bay to see what a new modern library looks like, and to ponder why we don't have one yet either. But I think it's a true indication of how far we've come, is that as a foundation member, we didn't feel the need to put out a gotta go to the council meeting email tonight to fill the room, to have people saying yes, 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 and yes. That the level of confidence that the council has supported and moved this project along, and the staff and the progress that we've made, not filling the room up and keeping everybody here to midnight is actually a tribute to the work that's been done. So I would, as a foundation member, as a member of the LAC, I just would like to urge you to accept the recommendation and to move on. We have challenges ahead of us, to be sure, but we've made progress, and I'm personally very excited about the potential of what we have in front of us. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. You know, if it was easy, it already would have been done. And obviously, we have mountains still to go. But I just want to thank you for your time and your support, because we really do think that it's going to happen. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the audience coming to speak, we'll bring it back to council. Oh, Deirdre.
Thanks for the report, and thanks to the city staff and Group 4 and Kurt, I forgot the name of your company, and to everyone, the Friends of the Library and the Foundation and Library Advisory Committee. People have been working on this for 20 years, some in the audience for 20 years. This is awesome. And for anybody that needs convincing why a library is so important, I really do urge you to go down and spend some time in Half Moon Bay. I spent a lot of time in libraries as kids because we needed to go there for the encyclopedias. Not so much in college, but now I spend a lot of time in the library because I have little ones and they beg to go to the library. We spend almost 2 hours on Saturday mornings down at Half Moon Bay Library, and it's only gotten better. I mean, every week that we go, they just put in these little huts outside where you can sit in with a little table. They even have little brooms in there so the kids make pretend that they're sweeping, and we sweep up, and then we have our little snacks outside. It's really cool. They have little amphitheater type seating out there. We've been to puppet shows. They have arts and crafts from 10 to 11 every week, and we spend almost 2 hours there. We have friends there from Half Moon Bay just because we're there so much. And I don't know if there's any more books to read there for us because we've read them all. But the space for the kids is amazing. And then you go upstairs and it's more of the adult area. But just to be there and spend some time there, and it's nice to have a lifestyle where you can spend time there. When I see these teens walk in and walk right over to the computer and they know what they're doing and they snap out a laptop, it's really cool. I just noticed also that they actually took away some computers for the little ones. I think some of the parents were complaining about some screen time for the little ones, but when I see, 8 and 9-year-olds just walk up, grab a book, and sit down. It's really heartwarming, and that my daughter just lines up books and we just read. So if you need any convincing, go spend some time, take time for yourself, and really spend some time down there in the Half Moon Bay Library, and you'll see what you're missing, and you'll see why this is important. I think it's the Sanchez library model is going to be really neat. I think it's groundbreaking. I think Pacifica is being looked at a national level for a lot of things, and this is just one more thing that we'd be looked at for. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do here in Pacifica. So thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you. Mike?
I also want to thank staff and the county library system for the support over the years we've been doing this. And I'm the liaison for the JPA board. And when this discussion of the Sanchez Library came up to the board, everybody on the board supported it, and they were excited that this was going to be kind of a test in San Mateo County to see if it could be adapted to some other facilities. But one of the populations that are not mentioned in here that would create benefit from it is when we cut the hours of the Sharp Park Library, that did have an effect on the Resource Center, because that's where they sent everybody to go fill out and apply for jobs. And being it's not open as many days a week, it's some of the people at the Resource Center aren't having the opportunity to go apply for jobs online. Another population down Half Moon Bay is once a month, they have a social event for special needs adults. So that population is able to come out and have some fun and social interaction and learn some skills and everything down there in Half Moon Bay. So I think it really is not just seniors and kids and mid-teens and adults. I mean, there are other subgroups that I think are really important, and it is almost a safety net for some of the people that are underserved in society, the homeless, the unemployed, and special needs. So I think I think it is important, and I think the city does need to really move forward, and it would be, maybe the Friends of the Library could have that retail spot on Palmetto, because people would like to go in there, buy a book, and, help support the libraries. So I want to thank everybody for their efforts, and look forward to the next presentation when it comes sometime, I guess, in the fall.
Mary?
Yeah, I also really appreciate the commitment and the tenacity of the LAC and all the groups that have been working together to bring this forward. And I also really appreciated, Cindy, how you actually took the concerns that you've been hearing in the community and addressed them in your presentation tonight. I thought that was really good and really important, so thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, I think it's really important for us to move forward with this, so I'm excited about that.
Thanks. And when you said 18 months, I almost fell over because I was thinking, oh no, this has to be 18 years that we've been working on this. So how long? So I am so happy that we're finally moving really forward. I was extremely envious of the Half Moon Bay Library, and I'm looking forward to them being envious of our library when it's built. And I can see the usage will just increase dramatically when we have the new library, as it did in Half Moon Bay. And I look forward to just everyone being involved in it. And it's a huge community effort, and thank everyone.
So could I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I also really look forward to how you're going to incorporate the information from the data into the messaging that's going to go out to the community, and how that community outreach work plan, or how that's going to play out in the community, and I look forward to being part of that.
Oh, we do.
Mike?
Yeah. I also would like to share that anecdotally, some of the people in Half Moon Bay that were against the library have now singing the hosannas and the praise for the library. And I've heard comments about, excuse me, why is the city spending money on the Library Advisory Committee and stuff? All the money that we spent so far has been a grant from Supervisor Horsley's office. So most of the money, I think, has been spent from the county from a grant we got several years ago. So it isn't City of Pacifica money, it is county money.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Deirdre?
I'll make a motion to accept and approve the library project conceptual design report, move to receive and file the voter survey results, move to direct the city manager and the library advisory committee to conduct additional citizen outreach and retest the 2020 bond measure with likely voters at the end of the outreach effort, and report results to the city council.
I'll second that.
Please vote. And that passes 4-0 with 1 absent. Thank you. Thank you all. An extreme effort. So our next item is the proposed 2019-20 general fund budget. right?
Yeah.
I just have to remember the correct terminology.
Wow, Lorenzo, you can clear a room, I gotta say. I know. Yeah, it's nothing personal. I know.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I just handed it out.
We just get one. Take one of each.
Window. Sink into these seats. I know. Good in the blue. Made it.
Ready. Ready when you are.
Mayor Vardalos, members of the Pacifica City Council, my name is Lorenzo Hines, your Assistant City Manager. I am here to present another component of the 2019-20 budget. Tonight we will see presentations from the departments, both from their programmatic budgets. We will also see, I'll also be providing information about the budgets for the other funds outside of the general fund, and we'll also be talking about the capital improvement program and the capital projects that we intend on taking on during 2019-20. So the first thing I wanted to make you aware of as we go to page 2 in your slide presentation is that last week we had a little bit of rebalancing of the general fund budget, and I wanted to make you aware of the changes that were made. So as we were going through and fine-tuning everything, there were a couple of adjustments that needed to be made. Luckily, those adjustments evened out. And so they zeroed themselves out, and so that if you heard a very loud sigh of relief from City Hall last week at around, I'd say Wednesday or so, that was me. So the first thing we found is that you see in the general fund, the proposed budget, that the transfer in, that 993, the last version of this document that I gave you, that figure was 1.2 million. That 993 represents transfers in coming from other funds to support the work that Public Works does. And so as we went through and reconciled everything, we found that there was $300,000 there that wasn't coming in. However, at the same time, I increased the property tax estimate from 2% to 4%, the increase. And this is based on activity that I've seen at San Mateo County and some of their projections. And so I felt comfortable moving from 2 to 4%. In the past couple of years, we have seen a 4% increase in property tax, but because of my conservative nature when it comes to numbers, I always go to 2 and end up at 4, and this year I figured let's just go to 4 and concede that the last 2 years are going to hold firm. So luckily, those two adjustments even themselves out, and so the budget remains balanced, but I wanted you to be aware of those things, those balancing. The balancing's always going on, but it's just nothing that significant has popped up yet. Okay? So we're still good. And so the next page, I lay out the pie chart that shows the revenues. The composition of the pieces haven't changed. Property taxes and department program expenses are still our largest categories. On the expenditure side, I'm sorry, that was the revenues that we saw on the last page. Here are the expenditures, and with the expenditures, you can see public safety is 50% of our expenditures. So tonight, we're going to have some departmental presentations, as I mentioned earlier. We'll be coming back to you on June the 10th, and we'll have a couple of public hearings, both for the CIP and the capital budget and for the fee schedule, where we'll be asking you to adopt both of those documents. Also on June 10th, we'll be doing final presentations of the 1920 budget, and there will also be a resolution establishing the appropriations limit for 2019-20. And then on June 24th, 2019, we'll have the adoption of the 2019-20 annual operating budget. And at that time, your assistant city manager will dance in jubilation that another budget is done. So the first department that we're going to bring up is our planning department, and Tina Wermeister is the director. And so Tina's going to take us through some of the programmatic activities that occur with the department. And here's Tina.
Thank you, Lorenzo, Mayor, and City Council. I'm going to present the little background on the planning department and our budget. This is a picture of us there. You see we're a whole bunch of relatively short people and one really tall person there. So the planning department consists of 3 divisions. Planning division supports and implements the policies related to development in the city of Pacifica, including general plan, zoning ordinance, and specific plans. We're also responsible for updating those documents. And so, as you know, major initiative this year is updating the general plan, local coastal plan, and preparing a Sharp Park specific plan. Much of our work is very important to involve community outreach and engagement. And so the picture there on the bottom, I guess our left, is the first Home for All engagement in April. We also have the building division, which issues permits for new construction, provides plan check services and inspections. We have one of our staff identified initiatives is to improve the building permit process, or all of the processes around customer satisfaction with our building permit process. So we've recently launched a customer satisfaction survey, and so we are just in the very beginning of doing that, and so we're still getting data and processing that information. We're also, as a result of some communication or some input that was received last time, we were going to extend the contract for our consultant that provides the majority of the services for our building division we're studying business and operational changes and improvements that can be made with our consulting firm. This chart just shows kind of a history back to 2014 of the number of building permits issued and inspections completed. And just for information, because it's kind of interesting, I've provided the residential valuations and the commercial valuations. These are for calendar years, not fiscal years. It's just informative to see how much the cost of construction is changing and the level of investment in the community.
What was the major drop from 17, 18 in commercial?
So in 17, we had several new commercial projects pull their building permits. And so that's when that valuation gets logged. And so that included the mixed-use project on Francisco and Carmel, the mixed-use project and Pedro Point, the Lindemar, the old Denny's building shell was pulled in 2017. So that's why there was the big uptick.
Okay, thank you. But in terms of the permits issued from 2014 to 2018, there's been a net gain of 30 permits issued, and I'm assuming that's both residential and commercial?
That's correct. That's all types of permits. So not just new houses and additions, but also any other type of permit, water heaters, roofs, et cetera.
But, okay, now why would inspections not would have such a big jump from 3,600 to 4,700?
It just depends on the type of permits that are being pulled, and I haven't run that information. So some permits will require several inspections if you're building an addition.
Okay.
And a roof, may require just a few.
Okay, because I know when I had my deck done, I think the inspector was there 3 times. So it might be one permit, but
Yes.
3 inspections to get it done.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
We also have Code Enforcement Division, which investigates and acts on complaints of violations received from the public. And here are just a few before and after photos. One is of residential structure that had a broken down car, a lot of garbage in the front yard, and then also Code Enforcement works closely with the police department and Public Works to clear homeless encampments as well in the areas. So this is a list of the council prioritized projects and initiatives for this next fiscal year. I know the council is familiar with these, but just for the public, to work on supporting affordable housing initiatives, including developing an affordable housing impact fee, working on the Sharp Park and Sanchez Library project, as you just heard, completing a comprehensive general plan update, local coastal plan update, and a Sharp Park specific plan, updating and implementing a climate action plan, and as I mentioned, studying and implementing permit process improvements. These are just a couple screenshots of brand new website that we got started with our consultants. It's planpacifica.org. It's fairly lightly populated at this time. We just kicked it off, but this is going to be the hub of where we'll be posting information about the project, all 3 of the projects: general plan, specific plan, local coastal plan update, community meeting information, draft documents, etc. And now to the budget. This chart is showing a few of the projects that are kind of driving the changes in the budget, which from last year really aren't that significant, but we wanted to make sure that you were aware of them. So continuing to identify funds for developing a priority development area in the Sharp Park area. These funds would be for a consultant to help us fill out the MTC application forms. This chart is showing the cost to do the general plan, local coastal plan, and specific plan update, which has already been authorized, but we just put it in there because the majority of the expenditures will occur in this next fiscal year. SB2 grant program, That is going to be a program that is going to support creation of affordable housing, and it's 100% reimbursed by the state of California. As you probably have heard in other presentations, but the city is working on getting the scanning, what would you call it, Lorenzo? The scanning, document retention software.
We're looking at bringing in a system that would help us with document management and basically allow us to cut down on the amount of paper and actually start to have more electronic documents in City Hall as opposed to a great deal of paper.
And because building has so much paper that we take in, and we are required to retain much of it, the state does allow us to collect a fee to help offset those costs and pay for some of the document imaging. So that's what the $100,000 is to kick off. We have a lot to catch up on if you've ever been in our office. And then lastly, the affordable housing impact fee study, we've identified $60,000 to help establish that fee.
Okay, the priority development area, has CHAG released that application?
MTC, no, not yet. They're still working on the form that it's going to take in the next Plan Bay Area 2050. And so they're going through the horizon studies is what they're calling it. And they keep moving the date on me, but they anticipate the application coming out in the summer, is the last I had heard.
Now, do we have a specific area of town that we're looking at for the priority development?
Council's direction was the Sharp Park area.
Okay, so we're still chugging along, and now any plans or projects that you're approving are going towards that goal, right?
Right.
Okay, because the priority development area would actually give us more money for street paving, transportation, et cetera. Okay, and the affordable housing impact fee, is that Nexus or is that another study?
That's the Nexus study, yes.
That's the Nexus study?
Yes.
And I know I've been on council 6 years and they've been talking about the Nexus study. Is there any end in sight for that, or have they ever released something, or?
Yeah, so 21 Elements did prepare a report for Pacifica. There hasn't been the direction to make this a priority, and now there is this year. And so it is a few years old now, so we needed to identify some funds to update it and get it into a legally adequate format and bring it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
So this is kind of what it all boils down to, the budget numbers. You will notice that the cost recovery has decreased because more of our time is being spent on non-cost recoverable projects like the general plan update this year. But that is my last slide, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tina.
Okay, thank you.
And since Public Works has been getting a lot of attention and love tonight, I brought both sides of Public Works with me tonight. So what can we say? We can talk about VACONs and various other trucks all you want tonight. So I'm going to introduce Sam Bautista. He is the Deputy Director of Public Works, and he's also our city engineer, and he's going to take you through the Public Works budget.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. Sam Bautista, Deputy Director of Public Works, Engineering and Field Services. I wanted to acknowledge some of my staff that's here tonight. First of all, I have Ray Biagini, our Field Services Manager, is in the back, along with Aaron Clark, the Park Superintendent, and Chris Martin, the Motor Pool Supervisor. And then next to me is Ryan Marquez from Engineering.
And Paul.
Paul Alvaroni's back there.
Oh, Paul, you came in late. Hey, Paul.
The guy
Paul
that's,
Alvarini.
isn't he in charge of street paving? I mean, he's God, you know?
Thanks for coming, Paul. Thank you.
Don't forget about Lewis.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start off this presentation. So our mission statement is to maintain and repair city infrastructure in an efficient and cost-effective manner while providing a high level of customer service and a safe work environment for residents, visitors, and city employees to maintain parks, playfields, and medians throughout the city and establish programs for the improvement of existing facilities, to clean beaches for all to enjoy, and provide city departments with safe and reliable means of transportation, facilities, and equipment use. And with that, this will frame our presentation. So the engineering division, what we do is we plan, design, and construct a lot of the city capital improvement projects. We also do the development review and field inspections, and and we also get complaints from the residents regarding traffic. So we go out and we do traffic engineering analysis on intersections, traffic signals. We also prepare encroachment permits for residents, for businesses, and we also do those inspections. We apply for many grants, federal, state, and county grants, hoping that we can build infrastructure in the city. We provide emergency management and technical services during natural disasters. We also uphold the stormwater pollution program, and we also maintain a lot of the city mapping within the city. Field services, they are your workhorses. They are out there, they're very visible. They go out and they maintain and repair all the city infrastructure, whether it's the street, the storm drain, the facilities. They're out there. They're all working in the parks, maintaining the beaches. They preserve all the city's natural resources and protect wildlife. They are the first responders during these natural disasters. So they're out there in the rain, and of course, especially while people are sleeping, they're always out there. They're there to respond to hazardous material spills and vehicular accidents. They maintain 51 city vehicles and equipment. They maintain all the fire engines. They also maintain the city facility backup generators. So this year was a busy year. We completed the 2017-2018 pavement rehabilitation project. As you've seen, Oceana is now paved. Lindemar is paved and has the bike lanes installed. We also installed the Hickey sidewalk project up towards Gateway. We've done various municipal building repairs. We have also taken down a lot of hazardous trees. One of the biggest projects that we've done is the paving of the Frontier Land parking lot. And of course, the last on the list is we replaced the lights in the chambers with LEDs and also changed out the HVAC.
Last on the list, but first in our hearts, by the way, those council chamber updates.
We can see in the back.
So these are just before and after pictures of the Frontier Land parking lot. As you can tell, now it looks like a real parking lot. There's our pavement rehabilitation project, especially on the left-hand picture. You can barely see the green bike lanes there, but we've received a lot of positive comments regarding the bike lanes on Lindemar. And what do we expect to do in this next coming year? We do intend to repair the Milagro Creek outfall. We do have the Cabrillo School pedestrian crossing over improvement project. That's under design at the moment, and we should be out to construction in September. We're in design with the Cattle Hill property trailhead and parking lot project, and we hope to get that constructed before the big celebrations in November. We do have the Palmetto Avenue Street amenities project, and also parks, beaches, and trail signage improvements.
Was the Cabrillo Crossing, was that part of the Safe Routes to Schools program?
That is correct.
Okay.
Other projects that we're going to be working on in the next year is this Beach Boulevard Plaza and landscaping project, just at the end of Beach Boulevard there. We will have another Monterey, or another pavement project on Monterey Road, and we'll do slurry seals this year to get our PCI increased. We're also going to do a curb ramp project. We're going to install 100 ADA curb ramps in the city. We also have the Palmetto Sidewalk project, which will install a brand-new sidewalk from, is it 1400 Palmetto? 1400 Palmetto all the way out to, like, towards the West Line. And of course, we're going to be doing some playground equipment improvements. Okay, so this slide shows you the baseline budget as well as ongoing and one-time asks. So just going down the line, the Flood and Sea Level Resiliency Agency, or Sea Level Rise Resiliency Agency, that's a 3-year commitment at $40,000 a year, and of course, council did approve that. We are asking for 2 part-time employees. These employees are the ones that will allow our skilled labor to go out and do projects while these 2 employees clean the bathrooms or pick up trash in the parks. So it gives us better use of our skilled labor time. The dust control dog park for $5,000. We've received complaints from neighbors, and so we want to keep down the dust that's being generated at the site. So that's what the 5,000's for. Increase in overtime. As you know, the storms of this year have been pretty bad, so that equates to more people being out late at night, so we're asking for increase in overtime. Tree maintenance for $50,000. This is for the removal or trimming of eucalyptus trees or additional hazardous trees during the year. And then the last ask is an increase in contractual services for $20,000, and that's for like unforeseen studies that we need to do throughout the year. So we're asking for that money.
A question regards the increase in overtime. Yeah, I can see we have just regular overtime because of whatever, the lights go out, traffic lights or whatever. But any overtime that is because of storm-related damage, seawalls, et cetera, are we able to charge that to the disaster account and therefore maybe see if we can get reimbursed by FEMA or the state office?
Yep.
So I can answer that question. FEMA would have to declare a disaster, or Cal OES would have to declare a disaster for those to get reimbursed, but yes, theoretically they could be.
Neither of these have been, we declare an emergency every council meeting, so, Cal, OES hasn't declared our seawall or storm damage or anything as disasters? Because we've applied for funding, and apparently I think we're in line to get some, but that doesn't qualify us to submit the overtime?
So it has to be during storm time. So if there's a state or nationally declared disaster for certain storms, for fires or whatever in the area, that's the only time that's allowed to be reimbursed under the federal assistance program.
Okay, and none of ours qualify?
If it happens during the storm, in the past, we have successfully got reimbursed for certain storms.
Okay, that was my question, is are we doing the procedures to get overtime due to disasters or stuff, to get reimbursed? So you're doing the accounting and filing the forms we need to and all that. Okay, thank you.
I think wherever the opportunity avails itself, we're going to take advantage of it.
Oh, I know you try, Lorenzo.
And so the other, Sam's going to go on with the increase in contractual services, but I just wanted to interject that the tree maintenance line item, we already have $90,000 in their baseline budget for tree maintenance. This adds another 50 to it, bringing the total budget to 140. I'm going to come back to that particular topic when we get to the all funds budget, because I have a proposal for council. But I wanted to make you aware that the total tree maintenance budget, if we get this augmentation, will be $140,000. Sam, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Ryan.
This is the last slide of the fiscal year for 2019-2020. And with that, I'll answer any of your questions.
I know they're removing a lot of trees, and the street tree services are going up quite a bit. Are they going to replant trees also that they remove?
We would, the 50,000 would include the replacement of trees, such as in the parks. The street trees are, they could be problematic because some of the residents, the property owners that this tree would be placed in front of, sometimes they don't want them. So it's definitely a touchy subject, and Aaron Clark is here and he can answer that question. Aaron?
The whole thing, because all those numbers were wrong. Excuse me, my name's Aaron Clark with City of Pacifica Public Works. I'm lost on the question now.
I wanted to know if because there are a lot of trees that are older and they're removing all the older trees, are they going to plant newer trees? And the answer was that a lot of people don't want trees.
That happens a lot. There's a lot of issues with replanting. One of the issues being that homeowners are responsible for the sidewalks these days. That didn't used to be the case some years ago. So people have concerns about roots damaging sidewalks, that they're going to be in the situation where they're going to have to do those repairs. So that definitely impacts that. But we do plant when people want trees, or the removals we did on Naomi last year. We replaced all the trees. We replaced all the trees on the removals we did in the back of Valleymar last year. I'd say most of the time we replace trees, but you can see at some areas, and the front of Randall Mar, for example, most people didn't want trees there, and that's why it looks that way. We have to have support of the homeowners. We don't have the staff to water trees when we plant them, so we always ask for the cooperation of the homeowner. We'll plant the tree, but then they have to agree to water it for a year till it gets established, and if they're not willing to do that, then there's really no point putting a tree there. So that's kind of how that works.
I have a question. Being we have Public Works and the tree guy here, a couple people have asked me, what's Caltrans doing with, they have that big crane pulling trees up by the roots on Highway 1, like right by the new pedestrian bridge. How far are they going to go down? Are they going to replace them? Or am I the only one seeing this?
No, I know what you're talking about.
No,
Yeah, because I've never seen a crane pulling trees out like this. Do we know if you don't know, I know it's a state agency, so it's not your
I'm not sure
project.
which trees you're referring to. I know there was one downed and they were removing that, and I know they're revegetating and landscaping the area as part of the overcrossing project, but I'm not sure if they're actually removing numerous trees or not.
Well, maybe they're maybe they're really big bushes, but they're pulling them out by the roots. And then how far down are they gonna go, do you know?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but we can certainly get an answer for you.
Okay, because I've had a couple of people ask me, and I don't know if you can put it in connect with Pacifica, because, they're pulling these things out by the roots, clogging up traffic in the midday. And nobody's been against it so far, so.
No, they want more.
Yeah, they want more gone. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up is our wastewater division with Louis Sun, our Deputy Director of Public Works, on the wastewater side.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. Louis Sun, Deputy Director of Public Works, Wastewater. The wastewater division essentially is made out of two groups. We have the plant operation and also the collection systems. The plant operation, our mission statement is fairly simple, is to maintain and operate the Clara Creek water recycling plant in compliance with regulatory permits from the State Water Resource Control Board, and also with several other agencies, as you can see in the slide. But our primary permit is from the State Water Resource Control Board. We also, our secondary mission is to prolong the life of the wastewater treatment plant infrastructures, all of the equipment within the plant. We want to maintain that and prolong the life of those infrastructure. And also to maintain and monitor the Clara Creek wetland. The wetland is known habitat for endangered species. The other group in the wastewater division is the collection system. The mission statement for collection system is to maintain and clean and repair. We have about 104 miles of sewer main trunk lines throughout the city. So it's the collection's job to maintain the sewer lines. And we also have 5 sewer and 2 storm pump stations, which they maintain. Our collection folks also review proposed development plans, and they set conditions for new sewer installations. We also have staff that inspect restaurants and commercial food establishments to ensure that fat, oil, and grease, is short for fog, are kept out of the collection system. We also inspect new sewer lateral installations and replacements of existing sewer laterals. And sort of on the right, you can see a picture of the Vatican. And understand that the mayor is now the expert in Vatican, so we'll be calling you the next time.
I know all about it.
We have a cleaning out, so. Some of the feature of our treatment plant, Clara Creek Water Recycling Plant, we were permitted to treat about 4 million gallons per day of raw sewage. But during the storm event, we can treat up to 20 million gallons during a large storm event. We can sustain at about 16, but once you get to 20, we will start losing our plant. So it's very important that we'll try to get as many of our SBRs idle and trying to keep up with the flow. We also process about an average about 380 dry tons of biosolids annually, with about 300 dry ton reused for land application. The plant uses ultraviolet light to disinfection, and that's our last step in our treatment. And after that, it's discharged into the creek. Our plant is also one of the first plants that uses the ATAT technology, ATAT for autothermal thermophilic aerobic digestion. It's a pretty high advanced technology in terms of for digester technology. It uses basically it's aerobic, which meaning there is oxygen in the digester, and it helps destroy the volatile solids. And it also help our sludge to dewater easy. So, and here's some pictures of our staff cleaning out the UV, the ultraviolet disinfection ports. Some of the highlights for this fiscal year, 2018-2019, we cleaned over about 100 miles of sewer mains, and we also CCTV'd about 12 miles of sewer mains, and we also completed chemical treatment about just under 12,000 linear feet of sewer mains. What I meant by that is we use chemical treatment for doing root cleaning and root intrusion treatment. And also by contract, we have replaced about 16,000 feet of damaged sewer mains throughout the city. And also this fiscal year, we've done about 48 manholes, and these are all done in-house manhole repairs. And also, we also completed our pump station and our treatment plant condition assessment. And this year, we also completed the Pedro Point Sewer Rehab Project, and that particular project also received an award from the American Public Works Association group. It was awarded the Project of the Year for utility project for between $2 to $5 million in size. And we also completed our ATAT modification project, phase 2. And the last project we completed this year is the Highway 1 and Crispy Sewer Rehab Project. What to expect for the upcoming year? We're going to complete the wet weather equalization basin project. This project is over 95% complete and is still slated to be completed by around July of this year. We're going to continue the sewer lateral grant assistance program. This program is an annual program. And I apologize for the slide, it says continuation, but actually we already completed the Terra Nova and Osted sewer main project. That project was completed about 3 weeks ago. And we're going to commence our Gypsy Hill project. There's a sewer line that goes through Gypsy Hill that we're going to look at rehabilitation, that particular line. And we're going to commence our Sharp Park Pump Station odor control upgrade project this year. A couple other smaller projects are the Clara Creek Vehicle Storage and Office Facility, and also the Clara Creek Laboratory Room Improvement. We're going to start that project this coming fiscal year. Here is a look of our proposed budget. And if you can take a look, our proposed operating budget, this is Fund 18, is for operation. It's actually going to be slightly less than this current fiscal year, and that's due to some efficiency in our operation. Our staff's been working really hard on making better efficiency in our operation to reduce some of the chemical usage and our energy usage. So that's contributing to that. And if you look at the total operation costs for this coming fiscal year, it's definitely a lot less than last year, and that's mainly contribute to equalization basin project where we had a transfer fund to 34. And look at our cost recovery. We have 100% cost recovery, and our staffing is remaining the same at 28.5%.
So, Louis, if I may, I just wanted to just give you a quick overview. We have one more part of the wastewater enterprise that Louis is going to tell you about, but I just wanted to tell you how these funds interact with each other. So when we refer to the wastewater enterprise, we're actually referring to two funds. Fund 18, as Louis mentioned, is the operations fund. And so all of the sewer service charges, as you see under revenues, the fees, the amounts that folks are paying for these services are flowing into that line item. You'll see an increase of 14.6 to 16.023, and that represents an increase in the rates that was approved by council a couple of years ago. You remember that 5-year increase? We'll be bringing those rates back to you just for a review and continued approval of those rates, but we wanted you to understand that the dollars flow into Fund 18, and Fund 18 supports the operations both on the plant side and the collection side. Fund 18 also funnels some of those dollars that come in from sewer service charges over to Fund 34. Fund 34 is the fund that actually funds the capital projects. And that's where those expenditures are. And Louis, I'll let you go to 34.
And over here is Fund 34.
I have a question on that last slide. Can you go back one? Okay, under the repayment of the general pension obligation fund loan, you have projected 1819 146, then you have proposed 362, but in a previous budget session you said you wanted to lengthen the term of that and you would be decreasing the payment, but this is not a decrease. Can you?
This is the revenue flowing in from the general fund for the payment. And so what I did was took that, it's $905,000 this year, $905,000 next year. I took that 1.8 million and then divided that by 5.
Okay, so you're doing it according to the in terms of the loan, not based on just the budgeted items. Okay.
Right.
I understand now.
Right.
Okay.
And this number may tweak up a bit because I've got to add interest for those other. So, but we wanted you to see that the payback is still in play and that the general fund is obligated to repay this loan.
And obviously, the capital improvements are considerably less this year than they were in the last.
That's correct. If you look at this current fiscal year, because of EQ Basin, our projected Fund 34 was a little over 13 million, but going forward in the next fiscal year in 2019-2020, our CIP is only projected to be about 2.6 million. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
When we get to the CIP portion of tonight's presentation, you will see how that 2.609 million is broken down by capital project.
Thank you.
Okay, don't know whether you'd want me to ask this at CIP or now. A few years ago, when Keith was here as the interim city manager, I had read about a program in Hayward, and Lorenzo very graciously went over there and was actually quite impressed with it, if I remember correctly.
I was.
I mean, it was something that we only wish we could do. However, you also said that the Coastal Commission had a provision in the solar panels that we could not go back and ask them for any new projects or any new benefits. And I was just wondering, would it be possible, since those are the original solar panels from, 20 years ago, and technology has gotten a hell of a lot better.
Right.
And last number I heard was that the solar panels produce about 15% of the energy the plant uses?
That's correct.
Okay, would it be possible to explore, one, could we invest in better solar panels to maybe jack that up to 20-25%, thereby release, plus then would the Coastal Commission grant us, would that be a lot of work to do, or would it be something worth exploring? Because you'd be cutting down, the expenditures as well as making the plant more efficient.
I definitely see the efficiency. I just have to understand whether or not that's something that...
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we already are looking into our solar panels. And I believe that was constructed through a PG&E grant initially. And our current solar panels are actually still under warranty. So, it had I think it was a 20-year or 30-year warranty. So whenever we have a broken panel, we're still getting a new panel from the manufacturer. But we do want to look at some of the newer panels, which with better efficiencies.
I seem to recall at one point that because our panels were so old and needing a lot of maintenance now or whatever, they almost offered us a buyout if we would get out of that. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct. The manufacturer offered a buyout, but we assessed their proposed buyout, and it was severely under, the value that was given to us. It wasn't worth. We felt we can still use that warranty. The warranty was still good, and we're going to get a better value out of the original warranty.
I know. I was just thinking if we could get the buyout from them and put it towards new panels might be good too. So I was just wondering if it was something feasible to look at to see if we could cost cut some of the electrical use at the sewer
Can I
plant.
just add to that, Mike, that we should keep our eye on any calls from Peninsula Clean Energy, because they are looking to fund some capital improvement projects along these lines. I don't know the details, but when I hear about it, I'll bring it back to you, but it's in line with this.
Okay. No, it's just 15%. I'm sure 20 years old, they're a lot more efficient today. Maybe we could get it up to 30 or 35. Thank you.
All right.
Can I just ask one question? So I noticed that there's more funds going into the sewer lateral grant program. There's more people applying for it, or?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
About 2 years ago, it was capped at 50,000, and about a year ago, we increased that to 100,000. And since then, there's definitely a lot more people who are taking advantage of this program.
That shows your outreach, so good job.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the other funds budget. And if you would join me on packet page 459. And so on packet page 459, I've laid out the remaining funds outside of the general fund. We're going to talk about a couple here tonight. I have a couple of slides. And you've actually saw one of the budgets from the other funds with the summary of the wastewater budget. As you can see down toward the bottom of the page, you'll see the enterprise funds, Fund 18 and 34. And so you've seen how those budgets come together. In general, these funds that you see are used largely to support capital projects. So when we present the CIP to you, you're going to see a lot of these fund numbers as funding sources for the CIP projects. I'm going to start at the top and just sort of generally go through just some of the more significant funds. So the biggest one that we have here at the top is the Disaster Accounting Fund. And what I've done with the Disaster Accounting Fund is broken it out, and it's basically in two segments. There's an undesignated balance, which currently sits at negative $2,060,000 or $61,000. And then there is a designated reserve for ERAF. As you recall, last year we combined Fund 30, ERAF, into Fund 38, our Disaster Accounting Fund. But I needed a way to isolate the ERAF dollars that were being moved into Fund 38 as they were obligated for particular projects. And I did not want that to be confused with the negative that had already been apparent there. So I wanted you to see that formation. And so if you can see in small print that the positive ERAF reserve is $3.9 million. And so again, those are dollars set aside. There's a big $2 million amount in that $3.9 million that was set aside for seawall grants that we brought to council a couple of years ago. So the one thing I wanted to say about the undesignated reserve is that undesignated reserve prior to this year sat at $3.8 million. However, due to City Manager Woodhouse's reserve policy and that policy of pre-allocating ERAF dollars, we were able to allocate $1.8 million of those ERAF dollars to this fund. And so 3.8 is now 2 million. So that's good news. And so you can all understand why I get a little nervous whenever ERAF comes in, and because I would really like that to pay off these negative balances. But I also realize we have other priorities. So that's Fund 38. And again, this is a presentation and a conversation, so please feel free to jump in and ask questions. The next fund we're going to talk about, and I'm going to ask Chief Steidel to come up, is the Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Fund. And we want to make sure that you're aware of this fund because Chief Steidel and the PD are doing great things with, you can pass that down to the Chief, with these funds, and thought you'd need to know about it.
Okay, good evening once again, Madam Mayor and council members. So Fund 7 is our Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Fund, also known as SLESA. It's monies that we get from the state every year in the amount of $100,000. It provides funding for frontline law enforcement services. They're allocated by the state controller to the counties, and we receive the monies distributed to us from the counties, from the county on a monthly basis. By the end of the year, it'll total $100,000. So what our budget looks like for the coming fiscal year, as we have for several years now, 3 or 4 years, we've allocated $67,500 for our 2 part-time community service officers. Those are the 2 gentlemen that wear their non-sworn personnel, civilian personnel that wear the light blue Pacifica police shirts. They go out and they mark our abandoned vehicles, do parking enforcement. We've actually worked them into now handling non-priority calls for service that come into the station or on the street. For example, a cold vandalism call, meaning a vandalism call with no suspect, somebody popped my tire in the middle of the night, or something of that nature, where there is no suspect and it's a report that needs to be taken though for documentation. Anything, however, that would require follow-up by a police officer or a detective, they would not be involved with anything like that. So that pays for those 2 part-time positions. We also have allocated $175,859 for equipment and training, and I'll explain to you momentarily where that will go, or how we arrived at that number. And we're expecting a total maximum expenditure this year of $243,359. So if you look up at the center columns, this current fiscal year, again, our projected revenue is $100,000 with projected expenditures of $127,462. To give you an example of what we've used those monies for so far this year, again, thinking frontline law enforcement services or anything that's going to assist our officers, our staff in doing their job out on the street. So the 2 CSO positions we continue to fund. The body-worn camera system that we implemented last year was paid for at the beginning of this fiscal year, this current fiscal year, out of that to the tune of about $30,000. Currently, we are reconstituting our police motorcycle program as well as police bicycle program. As you can imagine, that type of training and that type of equipment costs a lot of money. That's the type of that's the type of items we used this money to purchase. A couple of things that have happened recently, actually a couple of years ago, our security system at the police department, our electronic lock system, being the building at the time was, I think, 13 years old, was failing. You can imagine how critical that type of system is to us. We were able to completely upgrade and replace that system in our building for the protection of the building, everything that's confidential inside of it, as well as the property and evidence room. So sometimes things come up that we don't anticipate. And if we could justify them as frontline law enforcement line items rather than burden the general fund, we can use this type of money to offset those costs or to completely pay for those costs. So with a expected balance of $210,859 on June 30th of this year, please note we don't have to spend the $100,000 every year. We can roll it over. We usually carry a balance at the end of the year. We don't need to, it's not a situation where we lose it if we don't spend it. So we're very frugal with how we spend it, again, because we never know what's going to come up, what we might need it for. So this year, for this coming fiscal year, we're anticipating, again, $100,000, and we've listed the projected expenditure authority of $243,359. As we have in years past, we're going to end the fiscal year on June 30th, 2020, with $67,500. Now, this is how we come to that figure. $67,500 is what we budget every year for our CSO program. So what we have in place is, if something happen and the state ever take this program away from us, we have at least one more year of that CSO program, and I don't just have to lay these 2 folks off. We can gradually get rid of the program over time, over the next year. As with most years, there is a good chance we're going to finish with a higher balance than $67,500. But again, not knowing what could come up, we always anticipate that we may have to spend the full amount. Any questions? Thank you.
The all funds list, and I'm going to skip over a couple of funds because you'll actually be seeing how we're utilizing these dollars again when we present the CIP. But I wanted to bring your attention to Fund 9 and Fund 22. And Fund 9 is our street construction fund, and Fund 22 is our general capital improvement fund. As you can see in Fund 22, there is a negative $2.370 million as our estimated beginning fund balance. Back in 2003, a loan was made from Fund 9 to Fund 22. That loan carried a 2% interest rate. And that loan, up until 2 years ago, had not been repaid. The former city manager, on her way out, paid about $1 million and paid that down. However, interest is still accruing. And so we're still looking at this $2 million deficit. We are working internally to make sure that that deficit does not grow due to overspending of this fund. And so for this year, we've got $276,000 in revenues that are coming in. However, the expenditures are $417,000. I can assure you that the Public Works expenditures total $276,046. However, there is a debt service payment that is being made out of Fund 22 of $142,000. And that debt service payment is for a energy audit that was done some years ago here at the city. So, and I have a proposal for council. I'm going to take you back up to Fund 38 and the prior excess ERAF fund reserve. As I was doing the reconciliation to ascertain how much ERAF was left over and how much of it was committed, I found that there was ERAF committed to the tree maintenance program. That same program that I said earlier was in Public Works' budget to the tune of $140,000. So what I would propose to council is that we use $140,000 of this ERAF, which has already been set aside for the tree program, to pay for the tree program. We then take that general fund that is freed up and use that to pay the debt service in Fund 22. And that keeps the spending in Fund 22 level and doesn't drive it into a further deficit. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention tonight, and because if I don't see any vehement opposal, you'll probably see it when we present the final budget. But I want to keep 22 as solvent as I can. And as dollars come in from opportunities in the future, be it ERAF or other opportunities, we can bring proposals to you to mitigate that $2.370 million. Any questions? Okay.
I do. Oh, go ahead.
So I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. We had approved that the ERAF that we are getting in August be allocated to certain places. One of those places, is this what I'm hearing, was sort of other projects, and part of that was 144 tree.
So we had, when we had prior ERAF, these are prior ERAF dollars, not the ERAF that's coming in August.
Oh, okay. So
But the ERAF that has come in years past. Public Works has indicated that, hey, we need a certain amount of this for the tree maintenance program. And so those dollars are set aside in that $3.9 million. They were never formally approved by council, but the set aside is there.
So there's, I see the words here, and I just want to say them out loud.
Okay.
Prior excess ERAF sitting
Exactly.
somewhere, it's
sitting in.
just money that we can use as we see fit.
It's money that we have set aside to pay our match for the seawall grant, which is
Right,
$2 million. The tree program, there are a number of projects that we have brought to council over the course of over the last 3 or 4 years, where we have needed.
These monies were already allocated?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're doing is just, even though a council, I don't know if I was here when they were allocated.
You weren't.
Probably, okay, not. So.
I wasn't here either.
You weren't here either. Okay, a previous council allocated this
Right.
money. You're just asking us to reallocate money
No, I'm not necessarily asking for a reallocation. I'm letting you know that what we were spending general fund on, turns out we have ERAF to spend that on, which frees up the general fund to be used for something else.
I think it's a wonderful discovery. I guess I'm just a little,
Basically, you found money in the cushions and the couch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
My question is, the tree fund, tree maintenance, tree services. Tree services is increasing by 100,000 already from 18 to 19.
Where is that?
Page 26 in your handout.
Okay.
I don't actually think that's a good analogy, that we found money. I don't think we should say that, that we found money in the cushions. I'm sorry, it just,
So the tree service.
had the money already, we didn't find it.
Right.
We just were looking at what it was
Right.
being spent on.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it
No,
wasn't
it's
sitting
fine.
well with me.
But you understand what I'm trying to do.
I do now, I just don't.
Again, the ultimate goal here is to keep the spending in Fund 22 as level as I can keep it.
Yep.
Because I don't want to exacerbate that deficit. And as far as the street tree maintenance, I believe there are other costs in here besides the tree program. I'll let Sam and Ryan. Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have my budget sheet with me. Looking at this, there's an ongoing maintenance in the tree parks, the tree and parks programs. But as I said, I don't have the budget sheet in front
Yeah,
of me.
and what we'll have to do is we actually have that budget broken down by salaries and various other things, and we can get that back to council.
Is that that's not the 146,000 that you're talking about, that's in general fund expenditures? Because this is 196 or 287.
So
You
the
can just
90
tell me it's not the same thing.
So the 90,000, the base 90,000 is in that number.
Okay.
And so the increase of 50,000 is also in that number. But there are more costs over the 140 that you see. And those are most likely salaries.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that's my innovative proposal. Again, trying to do what I can to, again, mitigate Fund 22. And I'm very pleased that we were able to bring 38 down to 2 million. And with the pre-allocation formula for next year, I hope that we'll be able to somewhat come pretty close to eliminating the Fund 38 deficit over the next 2 years. So that'll be a good thing. As we go further down the all funds budget, I wanted to bring your attention to the debt service funds. Last year, we had a balance in the debt service funds. And so the debt service fund is essentially sort of a holding pen for paying debt service, bonds, and various other debt. And so the funds outside of wastewater transfer dollars into the debt service fund, and the debt service fund pays the debt from that fund. Because of our changing amortization tables and various other debt changes, we had accumulated a balance in the debt service fund. And it's a fund that's supposed to be in and out, so there should be very little balance. But last year, we had a balance, and so we were able to transfer that balance back to the general fund to help balance last year's budget. So I wanted to make sure you saw that the balance that's there is very minimal compared to the revenues and expenditures. Trust funds, Roy Davies Trust, we'll be using some of those dollars this year, and again, we'll lay that out with the CIP. You've seen a little bit about the enterprise funds. I wanted to just let you know that the Parking Enterprise Fund, which accounts for all the revenues and expenses associated, and I'm back on page 39 of the slide presentation, accounts for all revenues and expenditures associated with the beach parking program, started back in 2013, that we anticipate a balanced budget for next year, and it looks like we're doing okay this year. But I wanted to just make sure you knew that. Yes.
So on the parking revenues, we pretty much break even.
Pretty
but
much.
We do have additional personnel that do jobs there that we had other people doing those jobs in the past. Boy, I'm not making sense. But this income pays for additional, like the rangers who are at the beach who clean up and do all these additional items. It's not just exactly a break even, because we don't have to use our other employees for those items.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
So that personnel line item, that 471 that you see in the 1920 fiscal year, there's about 7 people in that line item. There's a part of a police officer, there's part of a PD clerk, all the rangers that are necessary to make this happen are there. I believe there's some park staff that's part of that figure, and I think there's some public works, maybe other public works staff, but it's bits and pieces of various employees that make up that 471. And we try to make it break even, because the goal here is to be able to bring in enough revenue to support those personnel and all of the other costs of running this particular program. One of the costs is replacing the parking meters down at the State Beach, because the corrosion is so devastating to those electronics that they need to be replaced every, 3 years? Every 3 years. And they're usually 10,000,
With a newer model,
15,000 a pop.
with a newer model that you can see with the sun glare? Or does it come with like a sun visor hat? Hint, hint.
Okay, gotcha.
So the goal of this was never to make money on the parking enterprise fund, basically to break even.
Right. We wanted the fund and the effort and the program to support itself.
Okay.
Because if these revenues weren't there, the general fund would be supporting it. So this is why it's an enterprise fund. It has to support itself. Okay. And so it has the ability to increase fees, and last year we did increase fees. But I think we're doing okay now, and we'll keep an eye on it. And there are some projects that, because of the work that wastewater has done over the last couple of years and how it has impacted parking, there will be a couple of projects in the CIP that will allow sort of wastewater to mitigate the impact that it's had on parks. And we'll see that when we get to the CIP.
Okay, thank you.
And so that concludes the presentation, the departmental presentation for the 1920 budget, and we're going to go to the capital program in just a second, as soon as we get it loaded up. And if you have any more questions for Public Works or any of the departments regarding the departmental presentations. All right. So now we move to the capital projects budget. And we're going to break this down between one-time projects, ongoing projects, and these one-time projects and the ongoing projects are non-wastewater projects. They're being funded by these funds that you see on packet page 459, these other funds. And after we're done with those, then we'll lay out the projects that the wastewater enterprise will be doing. But we just wanted to make you aware of all of the sort of the capital that Public Works on both sides is driving. And the first couple of slides that we have here is Lorenzo expressing himself in a financial format and letting you know how much these dollars, the source of these dollars and where they're coming from. Some are coming from the general fund cash balance, some are coming from a department's budget in the general fund. We're anticipating grants and SB1 dollars and Measure W dollars. Some are coming from Roy Davies. Some are being transferred from the general fund child care reserve. Some are being funded by Fund 71, which is our vehicle maintenance fund. Some are being funded by ERAF. Some are being funded by Fund 19, 23, 16, and wastewater. And so here's a chart, basically lays out that the vast majority of our projects are being funded by anticipated grants from anticipated grants or SB1 dollars or Measure W dollars. And you can see all the other little slices there.
And for the public, that's streets. Those are all streets,
Yes.
SB1 and Measure W.
Yes. And so I'm gonna let sort of collaborate with Sam on these particular projects. I'm gonna talk about the Sam, if you can talk about the work order system, and we can both speak to the fuel management system.
Okay. So the work order system, as you know, our public works crew uses paper for records, and we would like to go into the 21st century with a computerized work order system. And so it's easy for us to track everything that we do, especially during the storms, and just, you know, in general, just track when we repair a pothole or when we replace a storm drain. It gives us a better way of tracking the work that we do at Public Works.
The other thing that this system will provide is a way to manage assets on both the field services and engineering side and on the wastewater side. And so we'll be able to track these assets, and wastewater alone has a fund balance of $25 million. 17 of that is locked up in capital. And so you can imagine there's a lot of capital to track. And of course, Public Works needs these tools as well. And so this actually represents a collaboration between both sides of Public Works and possibly using the same system, so it allows for a lot of cross-pollination. So the next project is the fuel management system. Yes, sir.
Question, I know you had previously talked about trying to get some sort of customer relations software so that you know, people could look up, well, is this going to be able to integrate that, you know, someone calls the city manager, says there's a pothole, Elizabeth puts in the complaint, that it generates a work order for you guys, and then you guys enter, it was taken care of, or it's scheduled to be fixed this date?
I think that particular system will be another system that will be developed out of the city manager's office that communicates with the departments. But that is something that we'll look to track as far as making it visible, and we'll have to look at that. But you know, we always try to get back to whoever makes the request to let him or her know what our progress is.
Well, I know in different environments, there's ways that the customer calls up. You can add a note to the customer's name, and then it would generate something to the department to actually do whatever they're supposed to do. And it's, you know, basically, it's almost like a Salesforce type of thing.
Right.
And it would be nice if we had the two systems work together so that, you know, planning can also look at it and see their projects, and maybe like the current issues we're having with PG&E and stuff that maybe, and the Coast Highway and stuff, that it can be some sort of interface.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something we'll be looking at. We are, even though we've allocated these dollars, we'll be issuing an RFP, and we'll be looking for sort of as much transparency as possible. We visited some of our neighboring cities, especially the one to the north of us, and they have a work order system. I don't know if it does all the things that you mentioned, but they seem very, very happy with it. So I think for us to at least get out of 1973 and using paper to track the many things that Public Works does, I think that's a huge step.
Oh,
And
yeah,
as far
no,
as the customers are concerned, and the citizens are concerned, who are our customers, as those comments flow into the city manager's office, they're transmitted to the departments. We just have to figure out a way to make it more of a formal system, and see if we can integrate both of them. So I hope that answers your question. That essentially we'll try. Okay. And so the next system is the next, and we'll be going through this as quickly as we can, but there's a couple that I wanted to make sure you knew we were looking into. The fuel management system, the current fuel management system that we have is, there are a number of concerns that we have regarding the internal controls. I believe we spend over somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 a year on fuel. And so we're trying to figure out a way to control those expenditures and to make sure that we're utilizing these dollars as efficiently as possible. Public Works has proposed implementing a fuel management system. We've already had a review of our current system, so we know where the internal control weaknesses are, so we don't duplicate those weaknesses when we install this new system. But I wanted to let you know that we are being proper stewards of the city's assets. And I'll let Sam speak to the rest of the projects.
All right. Aaron Clark, this ongoing maintenance is actually for the park system, and Aaron can go ahead and speak to this 98,000.
And by the way, all of these, the cross references that you see on the left refer to the project as it's described in the capital improvement document. And so if you go to, let's say for the fuel management system, if you go to the page GF1-7, you'll see, hopefully you'll see the fuel management system there. And so I'll turn it over to the gentleman.
Yes, could you restate the question again?
Aaron, it's in regards to the ongoing maintenance for the 98,000.
The ongoing maintenance is just additional work that we're doing with regards to contractual services. I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but basically we have our project this year for trees is we're getting into some really large eucalyptus trees. We have to reduce the height of these trees, and it's basically it's very expensive work because these trees are about 150 feet tall, and it has to all be done with a crane and some people who are willing to climb very high in trees and work with cranes. It's not the type of work that's easily contracted out. So it's expensive and it needs to be done. Our bucket truck that we have, I think a lot of you came out and saw it the other day. I don't know if any people went for a ride in it. It's a tall truck, but you have to understand that our truck can't even reach the lower limbs of many of the trees that we work on. And if we have an emergency situation with a tree going over, for example, or starting to uproot, and it's 150 feet tall, it's pretty hard for us to respond to that with the equipment we have. And we need to reduce the height of these trees to something that's more manageable. And it's actually a multi-year project just to do this.
Okay. All right, Aaron, thank you. Thank you. And so the next project are some work that Public Works will be doing at Fairmount West?
Yes, that's correct. We're going to be improving the site, resurfacing that basketball court, installing new fences, putting concrete structures in. There's a drainage problem out there, so we're going to try and address the drainage problem, as well as a new playground for the children. The next line, the recreation facility improvements, those next two lines are actually, one is for Fairmount West and the other one is for Fairmount Recreation, and those are for the roofs, so $20,000 each. The next one is the city building roof repair. This is for the roof over at the courtyard, the pier, and Station 72. So it's just roof repair work. There are various municipal building repairs. That's going to be for interior repairs within the park, beaches, and recreation building and planning. So we'll be looking to see what improvements we need to do to improve the spaces. The next one is Station 72 deck. That's to repair the ADA ramp in front of the station.
And so that'll be coming out of NC North County Fire's budget line item.
And the Fairmont improvements come out of the Roy Davies Fund?
Yes.
No, the Fairmont improvements are being funded by the Child Care Reserve.
Okay.
And because all of these improvements somehow, some way improve the child care facility there at Fairmont.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is the emergency generator transfer switch. There's a generator at City Hall, and the transfer switch is very close to its end of its useful life, so it needs to be replaced. Palmetto Avenue street amenities, that project is to look at Palmetto Street, the next stage of it, and look for places to put trash receptacles, benches, street furniture on Palmetto. The next project, of course, is the Cattle Hill property trailhead and parking lot project, and everybody knows we're going to be constructing a brand-new 6-stall parking lot up at the end of Fassler. The Sarah Outfall repair is a storm drain outlet that daylights into the creek. That needs to be repaired. The Frontierland Walkway and Drainage Project, which is being funded out of the Frontier Remediation Fund. That project is to create is it track? Like a track around the park area, and of course improve the drainage in Frontierland. The next project is the Parks, Beach, and Trails signage improvements, and that's so that we can improve our signage that we currently have now, especially at the beach. The fitness court is a park recreation and beach and recreation project. We're looking at putting the fitness court out towards the Beach Boulevard Promenade. The street The pavement rehabilitation project is being funded by the grants SB1 and Measure W, and that's for the rehabilitation of Monterey Avenue Road.
I thought the fitness court was being funded by a grant from a company.
Good evening. The fitness court, we have a $30,000 grant from the company, and then that $10,000 is just to kind of get us going for the beginning. Part of it will be potentially a fundraising campaign where we'll get other funds in there. And we will probably, I would imagine, depending on how the plaza goes and the timing of the fitness court, we'll probably be back in front of you again, depending on how much more money we would need to get it. So the fitness court doesn't cost $30,000 to build. It's much more expensive than that, but that's sort of like a starter grant. And we can decide if we want to, with your permission, allocate more funds to that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, the next project is the slurry seal project, which is being funded by Measure W, and that's to slurry seal various streets in the city. The next project, Palmetto's sidewalk project we discussed is the installation of a brand new sidewalk from 1400 Palmetto up to West Line, and that is being funded through a grant. Okay, Cabrillo School pedestrian crossing, that's a...
Palmetto's on here twice?
Yeah, that's
In different locations?
No, that's the same project.
Yeah, it's
First column is missing on the second page, okay.
Yeah, your assistant city manager was having a little problem with spreadsheets that day.
Okay.
Okay.
The next project is Safe Routes to School in front of Cabrillo School, and that's both funded by a grant and the stormwater, Beach Boulevard seawall and promenade project. We're anticipating to receive a grant for the planning stages of the seawall. The playground equipment improvement, that's being funded by Roy Davies. That is for the replacement of playground equipment and also looking at accessibility at those playgrounds.
Sam, I'll take this one. So the skate park fence, and I'm going to let Sam talk about the Edgemar Park upgrade, but the skate park fence, the Anza restroom door replacement, and the slurry seal at the Pacifica State Beach are being funded by wastewater. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a number of wastewater projects have impacted parking with our parks over the last couple of years. And so this is a way for wastewater to sort of mitigate, doing what they can to essentially even the tables with parks. And so this is, I think, a good gesture on their part to repair the skate park fence, which was, when we put in the EQ basin, that fence was a casualty. The Anza restrooms and the State Beach, I believe there was some tanks there, and so wastewater is funding these projects.
Is the skate park fence, there was a lot of damage to that before the,
EQ.
finish my sentence?
Before the equalization basin?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm happy to see that's on here. And then I just wanted to make, it's sort of like a comment, but I'm sure everybody already knows it, when, on the previous page, when we're talking about things like putting in trash cans in places where there once never were trash cans. Public Works is probably thrilled to add these new trash cans to their list, but it's just something that should be considered when you're looking at people power and budgeting out who's going to be doing what, where, and we're going to, also, we're doing a new project down here, which is pack it in, pack it out, where we're going to have different sorts of receptacles down here too. So just a mental note, that's all.
Understood. Okay, Sam. Edgemar.
Edgemar Park is also installation of new playground equipment, and looking at the accessibility around that park, and doing some grading work, I believe. Let's see, the slurry seal, did you do that one?
Yes, I already did that one, the Malagra.
And then Malagra Creek outfall is to fix the outfall that's, the Malaga Creek outfall by drilling piers into the huge pipe out there, so it stabilizes the pipe. And that's it for that.
And so those are the new projects that Public Works will be taking on this year. We also wanted to give you an overview of some of the ongoing projects that are going to be funded this year as well. And the first one is the tree removal and maintenance. As I mentioned earlier, there's that $140,000 again. And again, I would propose to move that over to the ERAF column, and again, use those general fund dollars to take care of the debt service in Fund 22. And I'll let Sam speak to the rest of the projects.
All right, great. The San Pedro Creek Bridge replacement, that is the revegetation of the, in the vicinity of the brand-new San Pedro Creek Bridge. So we have to monitor the area and make sure it's revegetated. The Manor Drive overcrossing improvements project, that's the preliminary planning study that we received a grant from the county TA office to look at all the different options and widening the Manor Drive overcrossing. The San Pedro Creek and Pacifica State Beach total maximum daily load plan, that's monitoring. We're required to monitor the creek to make sure that there's the type of bacteria that's flowing through the creek is within acceptable levels. The new Pacifica Library, which is being headed by the planning department, and
Maybe Director Warmeister may. Did it ring a bell?
Yeah, 70,000.
It rings a bell, yes. What was the question?
Sorry.
70,000.
That is only the planning funds that came out of a previous ERAF allocation.
Yes.
And there's more funds that equal about 120, so that's 70 plus whatever that is the leftover Measure A funds that Councilmember O'Neill mentioned earlier.
Great. Thank you.
I'll go over the last one. Okay.
Okay, I'll take the last few projects here. For the long-term trash load reduction, we'll be doing various projects around the city, including trash capture devices and other trash-related projects. For the 310 to 330 Esplanade Infrastructure Preservation Project, that project's currently in the planning phase, doing design and environmental. We're currently working through getting the various permits and design aspects of that done. The 400 Esplanade Infrastructure Preservation Project was a two-part project in the cove that was formed just to the west of Manor and Esplanade. The first phase was to put in rock revetment riprap, which is now done. The second phase, which is a long-term fix, is to put in a seawall. We're hoping to receive grant funds to be able to begin the design and environmental of that project. And then the final project here is the Beach Boulevard Park Plaza, which we've heard about, which would be a hardscape plaza in front of our council chambers.
And so those are the ongoing projects for the non-wastewater funds, and even though wastewater is included in those. And more specifically, here are a list of the wastewater projects that are built into the Fund 34 budget. You'll notice they total $2.609 million. And so Deputy Director Sun will take you through these.
Okay, for the 2019-20 fiscal year, we have 3 new projects. I mentioned earlier the Sharp Park Pump Station odor control upgrade. We're going to begin the design for that. We're also going to be embarking on the ATAD Phase 3 project. And also mentioned earlier the vehicle storage and office facility at the treatment plant. The remaining project on the list, and there's quite a few, those are still ongoing projects. We have several smaller projects for the Lindenmar Pump Station. We also have collection system projects, notably the one I mentioned, Gypsy Hill, and we also have several other smaller lines throughout Sharp Park that we're going to be working on. And our goal is to conduct a follow-up to our master sewer study, sewer system master plan update Phase 2. We wanted to do this this fiscal year, but the equalization basin wasn't completed. So we're going to slate this for the upcoming fiscal year. This will help us kind of identify all the projects we've done in the last 10 years and see the improvements to the sewer collection system. And again, the lateral grant assistance, and that's an ongoing program. And then the remaining project on the list are all tied to Clara Creek Water Recycling Plant. We have various pump replacements, centrifuges, SCADA and PLC upgrade. Those are electronic systems that we're going to be doing, and laboratory room improvement, blower replacement, and we're also going to be partnering with Public Works in coming up with a computerized maintenance management system, the CMMS. And that's basically the same type of system that Sam has mentioned earlier that serve as kind of a work order system, also function as an asset management. So all this add together comes to about $2.6 million, a little over $2.6 million, which is substantially a lot less than the current fiscal year.
And so, and the only other change or difference that we see in the wastewater's budget is the additional capital projects. I forgot to add the skate park project to this list, so that total should be $160,000. And again, these are proposed to be funded by wastewater to just sort of mitigate their impact on parks over the last couple of years. And so that concludes the CIP presentation. The CIP will be back in front of you, as well as the fee schedule, on June the 10th. We will have public hearings for both of these items, and if you have any questions or anything you would like to discuss on any of the presentations that we've given you tonight, feel free to reach out. We can talk to you now, or you just come see us, and we'll be happy to talk to you.
Questions from council? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll come back to council.
Lorenzo, you were going to have a discussion on the 215 trust, or the 115 trust. Is that June 10th?
Yeah, June 10th, we're going to talk about pensions, and we're going to talk about the 115 trust.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to receive presentations on the proposed 2019-20 general fund budget for the Public Works Department, Wastewater Enterprise Fund, Planning Department, 2019 Capital Improvement Program budget, other funds, and related budget strategies.
Is there a second?
One second.
Please vote. And that passes 4-0 with one absentee. So.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
so
Wow.
much.
So detailed. So we will adjourn the meeting in memory of the 7 men who gave their lives fighting for our freedom. Thank you.